Hey Juice, how's it going? It's the weekend. How are you doing? Hope you're doing good. I'm doing good. It's the weekend. The ducks are fed. They're happy. I'm happy. I forgot to collect the eggs for the past few days, but I picked up like a stupid amount of eggs today. I picked up at least 6 to 8 eggs. They are, it's getting warm again, so everybody's laying eggs, and oh my god, so there's so many eggs. Which I need to do my, oh, let me collect my retainer real quick, and then we need to run our experts. We still need to do our tome stuff. The live letter for Final Fantasy XIV is going to be going live in just about an hour, where it's able to talk about the game going forward after Endwalker for the next 10 years. I am really looking forward to that, as it is my favorite game. I know that my main content on YouTube is usually Blue Archives, in addition to the duck videos on Twitch. But yeah, this is the game that I'm playing most religiously for most of the time. And I have a great deal of investment going into its well-being and its future. So I definitely won't miss it for the world. Get some water. Hope the queue doesn't pop. Okay. Well, meanwhile, we can go and go to. Oh, never mind. You know, it's always when I decide that I'm going to gather that the queue pops. Great timing. They have great timing. Oh, dead end.
Once upon a time, there was a beautiful blue star.
Always have good manners and type good luck,
that fell to
have fun.
pestilence and rotted inside and out. The more its people clung to life, the more they suffered.
I think DPS is a little bit slow.
Until they curse not the illness, but their fellow corrupted.
Okay. Well, I hope it doesn't, this one doesn't get too interesting. You know, okay, this is gonna be a little bit interesting. Ah, I see.
Those who lived,
I see.
those who died, hate.
Oh shit. Well, okay, the healer just ate shit. And we don't have any reds. Oh, wait, I'm playing warrior. I think we're gonna be fine.
And the very last of them wish they had never been born.
Nice. It is my duty as the warrior to live. Absolutely.
In a faraway place, a brilliant star eradicated
I suppose I should wait for the healer.
Before destroying the self-same lives it had saved.
Relax. I got this. It is totally a warrior moment. And it's always that boss too. I think out of all the Endwalker bosses that I had to solo, it's that boss is the boss that I always had to. It's that one and this one. Peacekeeper is actually yeah, Peacekeeper as well. These two bosses. Rala, not so much, because Rala I think is actually rather easy. Oh wait, did it already start? I just look at the map. I mean, not the map, but there we go.
So the actual letter live will.
You don't want to hear me. You want to hear them.
11 a.m. Japan time, which is in 45 minutes.
Oh, yeah, 45 minutes.
That we like to confirm if the video and audio are working perfectly. So if you notice anything, please leave your comment in your chat. 何かお気づきの点がありましたらいいよとかちょうどいいとかいうのを含めまして、ご覧の放送チャンネルのチャットに残していただければ、技術チームが確認いたしますのでよろしくお願いいたします。そして今日は、フルバイリンガルで、今回の PLL もお送りしますので、スクエニ X アメリカのオフィスからあゆみさんにお入りいただいております。So once again, this letter live will be full bilingual in both in Japanese and English. So we have a special member from our US office. Ayumi-san, おはようございます。Morning.
おはようございます。Good morning.
なので、あゆみさんもちょっとご挨拶いただいて、音声のバランスチェックさせてください。
はい、スクエア・エニックスアメリカの徳武あゆみです。Hello, my name is Ayumi Tokutake from the Square Enix Los Angeles office. 音声のチェックを行っております。This is a mic check for Ayumi. Please let us know if you can hear me all right.
No worries, Ayumi.
どうしましょう。サビ続けてもよろしいでしょうか。
大丈夫かな。 そうね、そう、もちろんそうですよ。日本とアメリカの画面を合成しておりますので、若干の差はねありますよ。だからしょうがない。ね、あゆみさんはこう見えて、グリーンバスの前に座っていらっしゃいますということです。
夢を壊すようで恐縮です。It's almost like I'm here in the studio, but I'm actually sitting in front of a green screen. My colleague has set up a very nice chroma key setup, and yeah, it's as if I'm there, but you may experience slight lag. I'm not sure, but hopefully it's almost simultaneous. I'm hoping. 間違って被って皆さんが喋ってる時に被ったらいけないですが、多分リアルタイム、ほぼリアルタイムですよね。
大丈夫だと思います。はっ、私には遠くから足音が聞こえるぞ。
あ、
よかった。真ん中の席のマイクチェックもできるに違いない。あ、おはようございます。Good morning。ちょうどマイクのチェックをするところでございます。We are now checking microphones。はい、こちら。はーい。
3画面構成。
そうなんです。で、そこらにイヤホンがとあるはずで、あゆみさんの声そこからです。
ちょっとこっち。
はい。
はい。おはようございます。
ということで、
ここがいっぱい。
千葉さんの声が聞こえないなんてことはあります。
まあそれは大丈夫でしょう。
We can hear Yoshida-san's voice just fine.
大丈夫そうですね。
あゆみさんとも、あゆみさんはおはようございますじゃないのか。こんばんはか。
こんばんはになりますね。お疲れ様です。
お疲れ様です。よろしくお願いします。
We were just talking about how Japan is like, oh yeah, good morning, and it's quite early actually. It's like 9 or 10 in the morning. 10 in the morning, I think. But in the US, it's like a little after 5 p.m. So it's like good evening on my end.
Please, it's almost yeah, it's 7 right now. It'll be 8 when the live letter starts.
まあ本当
Man,
は
I
ね、
feel bad for the East
節目ということで、
They're like
いつも通り開発ブースからやろうかなと思ったんですけど、のっぴきならない事情がありまして、スタジオを皆さんに無理を言って急遽すいません、スタジオでやらせてくださいということになったので、今日はスタジオからお届けします。
So of course, today was a sort of milestone. So it would have been nice to do it in the developer's room back at the Tokyo studio, but there was a bit of an issue that we ran into. So at the last minute, we have rented a space to do our event, and so we're doing it at another location outside of the office.
なんか音がずれてるって言ってる人がいるね。どこだろう。
In one of the channels.
大丈夫。なんかね、何人かがね、なんか吉田の口パクと音が合ってない。
ほう、音ずれチェック。
俺だけ音がずれてる感じがするって。俺だけちょっと時間を歪めてる可能性がある。
We seem to be seeing a delay with just Yoshida-san's movement and then his voice, and there seems to be some kind of lag. Is Yoshida-san warping time? Like, does his presence change that?
ちょっとじゃあテストがてら滑らない話をしてもいい？
はい。Yoshi P. Time Walker, Time Mage confirmed.
Just a quick story.
Time Mage
Anecdote here.
confirmed.
昨日さ、結構仕事でさ、なんか昼過ぎに結構大惨事があったじゃない？メールであなたも見てたと思うんですけど、で会議がすごくて、とてもじゃないけどその作業夜しかできなかったのね。
So yesterday, we were working, of course, and then you might have seen an inter-company email happening, and stuff was going on, and there seemed to have been quite a a fire that I had to put out, so there was a lot of meetings that I had to attend, and I couldn't get to my work until night.
でまあ気分でも変えようと思って
See if I get
今
the
日放送だし
opportunity
最近
to
ほら
solo
なん
run.
だろうみんな在宅が多いからさあんま服を買わないでちょっとなんか今日の放送用に服でも一瞬見てこようと思って会社を出たの夕方1回でいつも通りこうほらなんだろう俺あんまり関係なく外出するときってサングラスかけるじゃないまあいつも通り出たの会社を
And I thought to myself, okay, so I want to just switch gears, so I'm gonna step out once, and because we've been in this pandemic and we've been kind of stuck at home, I didn't really have a chance to go out like clothes shopping or updating my wardrobe. So I thought, well, maybe if I get like an outfit for today's live stream. And so I decided I'm gonna step out for a little bit of a break, and so I left the office once in the evening. And of course, I typically wear sunglasses when I step outside.
そしたら会社の前で会社の看板の前でふっとね左側にキャリーケースを引いてる若者かなともう一人いるなっていう気配は感じつつバッとすれ違ったら斜め後ろから「吉田さん」って声かけられたの。
And of course, I walked outside, and just as I was kind of passing the Square Enix sort of sign, I noticed there was somebody like rolling their carrying suitcase or like a rolling case, and then there was I think there was one more person there, and I could sense them,
shit.
but I just kept walking. So as I passed them, I started to notice they were
The
trying
healer's
to call me.
dead.
Like,
I just realized.
非化線かなと思ったの瞬間的に。
Oh
So I
no,
mean,
I
I
don't
thought
have
maybe
anything to
okay, they
save
might be
them
a player,
with.
they might be one of the warriors of light.
でバッて振り返ったらそのキャリーケースを引いてた若者が「あっ!」っていう感じで「あすいません思わず声をかけちゃいました」って言われたの。
Oh shit.
And
Oh
so I turned
shit.
around, expecting that they might know me, but the person who was carrying their rolling suitcase suddenly realized they were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I called upon you without really noticing."
であれ非化線って感じじゃなさそうだなって思ったらその彼がね「いや実は僕新卒でこの4月からスクエアニックスでに入社することになったんです」って言ってきてね。
So I thought, oh well, maybe he isn't a 14 player. He's not a warrior of light. And so he starts talking. He says, "Oh yes, I just recently gotten accepted to be part of the Square Enix team, and so starting April, I'm going to be part of the Square Enix family."
でおそうなんだよかったねってもうすぐじゃあ一緒に頑張ろうねっていう声をかけたの。
Oh, actually, that didn't hit nearly as
So I was like,
hard
"Oh,
as I thought.
congratulations!
So
Well, yeah, welcome to
I think
the
we're
family. I
fine.
look forward to working with you."
でそしたら「はい」って言ってくれて「じゃあね」って言ってこう立ち去ろうとしたんだ僕。その時なんと吉田の目に飛び込んできたのは
And so he was like, "Yes, I will do my best." And so I thought I was going to part ways. So as I was walking away, there was something that caught my eye.
もう一人いるなって思ってたの気配で。で俺がこう振り向いてまた歩き出そうとしたこの瞬間に目に飛び込んだのがお母さんとおぼしき人が僕の顔を見てっていう顔をしていたのが焼き付いたのよ。
So I remembered as I was passing that person by, there was another person with that man with his suitcase. So when I started walking, the other figure caught my eye, and apparently I think it was his mother, and she just had this look of like a big gasp on her face.
いやその昨日はね15年ぶりに買い替えたスモークジャンパーブーツに黒いデニムに黒いコートを着て黒いサングラスに黒いマスクをしてたのよ。
I went outside with my updated wardrobe, and it's just it was my jacket and my black boots, my black denim, my black sunglasses as I walked out.
so far so good still.
きっとね20年以上ね手塩にかけてきた息子をね 多分今2月だからさ、この4月からきっと地方から来たんだと思うの。会社の近くにきっと家もね見つけて、で引っ越しの荷物は業者で身の回りのものだけスーツケースに入れて、多分お母さんがね送ってきたんじゃないかなとストーリー的にね俺の中で思ったの。
So I'm sure this young man of 20 some odd years, his mother must have taken really good care of him, and he mentioned that he's going to start in April, so they must have come from, maybe not from Tokyo. They are planning to move and have him relocate and live on his own, and maybe they just found a house and they're making arrangements for like movers to bring his stuff, and he just has his like belongings in a rolling suitcase. And so perhaps like I have this story in my mind of like his mother came with him to send him off and whatnot.
できっと2人でね、母さんこれが僕が4月から働く会社だよって多分うちのね看板の前で話してたんだと思うの。
And I'm sure those two were like excitedly talking about his future. Like, Mom, see, this is where I'm going to be working from this April. I mean, I was right there by the Square Enix sign.
Yeah, it's a giant building.
いやーね、まあ本人は僕を知ってたみたいだからあれなんですけど、お母さんのね不安たるや。いや一応ね、俺サングラスの中ではすごい多分柔らかい目をしてたし、マスクの下ではにっこり微笑んでたのよ、ちゃんと自分的には。でも見えるわけがないんだよ。
I'm glad that the young man knew who I was, but like the look on his mother's face and just how worried she looked. I mean, I was doing my best to smile and have the warmest of expressions underneath my black sunglasses and my black mask, but there's no way you can see it.
That's good. That's good.
いやーね、心にお母さんの心に深い傷とね不安を与え、僕は僕でなぜかダメージを受け、まあ多分4月になればね、コロナ禍ではあるけど簡単なきっと懇親会でもあるだろうから、取締役とねその子を見つけたらね、あの後お母さん大丈夫だったって、ごめんねって言おうかなって思いましたっていう滑らない話でした。
And so I worry if we had left a very deep wound in the mother's heart, and for some reason her look on her face just damaged me a little bit too. So I'm hoping that I'm sure when we have our new recruits, like there should be some kind of congratulatory meeting in April, some kind of like a meet and greet with some of the management team. I'm hoping. So I'm gonna look for that young man and ask him, was your mother all right after that? I'm sorry if I left some kind of impression. I'm hoping I get a chance to say that. And that was my answer.
別れた後の会話ももう決まってるじゃないですか。何あの人。そしたら若者は多分うちの取締役だよって、取締役ってなりますよね。
I can imagine their conversation afterwards, like, well, who was that person? And the young man is going to answer, oh, he's one of the board of directors. And the mother's going to go, board of directors.
大変。
ちょっとね、
Oh, yikes.
社会に反逆しそうな感じに見えるからね。
Oh
Yeah,
no!
for sure.
Unfortunately, I'm on
I
ether.
definitely look like I would go against the grain of your typical societal
Sorry, man.
norms, I guess.
Yeah, I'm
まあで
on
もきっと
ether.
ね、一生懸命説明してくれるんじゃないかなと思うんだよね。
But I'm hoping the young man will
Data center
convince his mother
travel.
that everything is
Hopefully,
fine.
at some point,
なんだったらだって
soon-ish.
いや、ああ見えて意外とちゃんとした人だよって言って今日も放送あるみたいだから見てみようよって言ってもしかしたら親子揃って見てくれてるかもしれない。お母さんはその説は本当申し訳ございませんでした。
I can do healer.
普段からあんなんなんです、ごめんなさい。
And maybe he did a good job trying to explain, like, oh, well, he may look like that, but he's a very decent person, and there's going to be a live stream tonight, and maybe, Mom, let's watch together or something like that. Maybe they're actually watching mother and son this live stream. If Mrs. If you are watching this show, I'm terribly sorry to have scared you earlier.
All right, let's see what the alliance one is gonna be.
Yes,
Please
always
not
like
near,
that, but we will
and
get
please
そ
not
んな僕のロ
horrible.
ングストーリーを
I call it
Oh
Bone Monastery because every time you get it,
確
you're
認
just
する
like, oh,
それ
I
を確
got
認してもらう
Bone.
ために僕この恥ずかしい話をしてるんで
身を
The
切る
Old
思いを
Bones
する
Monastery.
どうです
はい、音直
Let
りま
us
し
see
た。
what our
By the way,
audio
I'm totally gonna
is like.
clip
It seems
that,
like there was
that
a delay,
solo
but
and
how are we
upload
doing
it.
here? We were doing
That's a
this
vid-
long story
that's a
just so
separate
that
video.
we can double check them.
Because that was
はい、
I
という
enjoyed
こと
that.
で、テストは以上の感じで大丈夫です。で、この後ですね、Twitch だけ、一応一旦配信止めてすぐリスタートしますので、Twitch の皆さんだけ一瞬切れますので、その点だけご了承ください。
なるほどなるほど
So I think we are, for the most part, good, but we will need to restart the Twitch channel. So we might drop out once and then come back on just for the Twitch channel.
それよりね第3次の中身がもう気になるっていう人いやなんか違うのよ最近なんかほらメタバースっていう単語がね、日本でやたら流行ってて結構
What do we get? What do we get?
なんか
Yes!
してほしいとかが多い
It's like
ですよでまあフォークの
Labyrinth.
宣伝になればと思って受けてはいるんですけど
Always a good feeling to get Labyrinth.
People seem to have latched onto there was something going on, like a great tragedy that was happening in the emails, and people are wondering what that was. But like, I think people have been hearing about the metaverse starting up, and that word is just kind of becoming, it's catching on, and so there has been several like requests for interviews, and I figured like, well, if it was an opportunity to advertise for Final Fantasy XIV, then why not? And so I would accept those opportunities.
まあできるだけねこう人によって今捉え方がまちまちだから、僕が考えるメタバースって何かっていうのをできるだけ正確に誤解なきように伝えようと思ってまあそのインタビューさせてもらった原稿がもう戻ってきたやつを修正してたの、そのやっぱりその僕が直接書いてるわけじゃないからどうしてもこうニュアンスが変わってしまったりする場合があるので、まあ、それを構成って呼ぶんだけど、まあ、それをやって足りないなと思うとかちょっと加筆したりとかってやっててまあね結構な人数でチェックもして、ね、こう分かりづらくないかなとかっていうのを結構やったんですよ。
Floor slap.
Of course, with doing these interviews, I want to convey what my thoughts are on the whole concept of the metaverse in a very accurate and in a way that doesn't cause any sort of misunderstanding. And so I get to look at the content of what the article is going to say before we publish it, and I have the opportunity to review what is written, because sometimes a verbal response might not necessarily translate properly onto paper, so we are allowed to look at it and offer our edits to the editorial company. And so there were certain areas I was checking and I was adding to it if I felt that I was lacking in some of the wording. And man, I think at least several people were checking the content of the article.
ちょっと待った。Twitch がさの NFTs ってすごい叫んでんだけどさ、メタバースと NFT 全く関係ないやろ。落ち着いて。
あ、そうそう、まず聞こう。もうちょっと面白い話だよ。
we're hearing things, we're seeing the comments in Twitch saying no NFTs, but just wanted to clarify, like NFTs and the metaverse are like unrelated to each other, and what we're discussing here is a bit more interesting than that.
14に NFT なんか入らないから、あとやめて。
And there's no way we're going to be including. We're not going to be including NFTs in 14, so
you're here to hear
I
first,
think we can
folks.
drop this subject.
No NFTs in 14.
We need to calm down a little bit.
落ち着いて。
Y'all need to calm down.
でまあそんなので770行ぐらいの原稿になってたんですよ。そしたら昨日ですね、昨日締め切りだったんだよね。そしたらね、入らないから330行にしてくれって言われて、ちょっと待ってよってびっ
くりした。
あれびっくりしたね。
閉じたもんすぐ。あっと思ってメール閉じちゃった。
And so we were looking at this article, we were making sure that everything is good, and we were proofreading it, and then it turned out to be about 770 lines of text. And I believe the deadline was yesterday, so we were trying to get it done, but when we received the feedback, it was like, oh, I'm sorry, this article won't fit in the space allocated, so could you reduce it down to 330 lines? And we were all like, what?
Yeah, I just closed my email.
Right.
Straight up.
Just close my eyes.
昨日それを結局夜中までかかってなんとか330行348行ぐらいにしてもう俺の本文は削りようがないからなんか他で削れそうなところは提案しとくからあとは編集さん側でなんとかお願いしますっていう大惨事があった。
And so I tried my best to narrow it down and I did my best, but like it was still 348 lines and I couldn't cut any further out of what I had said. So I returned it to the editor saying that, hey, I'm gonna make some more suggestions of where you can cut, but I can't cut any more of what I had said. And so that was the issue that was happening behind the scenes.
まあこれはでもねしょうがなくて実は僕ら長年やっぱりこうゲームインダストリーでインタビューとか取材が多くてやっぱウェブ媒体その紙があったとしてもウェブ掲載もありますみたいなので、文字数溢れてもまあ掲載の、なんだろう機会ってどっかにあるだろうからフルバージョンっていう形でやれればっていうのがそれも全員にあったんですけどやっぱりこう経済誌とか、その紙面とかになってくるとでやっぱりここまでこだわって構成する人があんまりいないんだろうなと思っていて、だからやっぱりこう今後はその文字数とかその1行あたりの文字数とかっていうのをきっちり事前に仕様を聞いた上で構成するならした方がいいかなっていうのが今回のまあ学びでしたねっていう。
Okay, I'm gonna be lazy, and I'm just gonna stand
And I
here.
think it's the way we write articles nowadays, considering the game industry and the different interviews that are being held, and a lot of media nowadays, even if they have a print media, they typically have like a web version of whatever article they write. So if something doesn't fit in the print version, it could always be used as further content on the web version. And I think the team was kind of under that assumption for this interview as well. And so I think this was more like a financial paper that we had to interview for, and it was more like a print media. And I think there's just fewer and fewer places that have a very sort of strict limitation on how they structure their articles. And so it was definitely a learning point for me to understand how many characters and or how many letters need to fit in a certain line of text before I had went into it with our sort of edits.
そんな中宣伝チームから今朗報が届きまして、調整版で問題なく受領いただけました。ありがとうございます。
Yeah, I can see
and it seems like we have approval with the updated version of the article. Hooray! Our edits were accepted.
At this point.
でまあもうテストなんでそろそろ終わんないとあれだけど、一個だけさっきね結構その NFT に対して NFT は反対だっていう声がまあ Twitch 中心に特にね海外の人たちすごくナーバスになってると思うんだ。まあスクエアニックスの社長の松田が昇進表明みたいな形で今年のお話を出したからちょっとやっぱりナーバスになってるなっていうところがあるなと思います。
And I do want to touch upon, I know we are doing just our test broadcast, we need to end soon, but we did notice a lot of reactions from especially the Western users about the NFTs, many comments about how you are opposed to NFTs. I do understand that our CEO, Matsuda, had commented on the concept of NFT in his sort of New Year's greetings, in his messaging, and there may be a bit of sensitivity, a little bit of nervousness happening around the topic.
でまあはっきりさっきも言いましたけど、14でもう一切 なんだろう、ゲームデザイン上そういうものじゃないので、やる気はないので、まずそれは安心して、もし不安に思ってるんだったら安心してほしい。それも明言しておくのでやらないです。はい。
And I did mention it earlier, but based on how Final Fantasy XIV is designed, we don't intend on incorporating any sort of NFT element in the game at this point. So if anybody is worried or concerned about it, I can clearly state at this time that we do not have any intentions to incorporate that into the game.
ただ見てると NFT をいわゆるマイニングされたものをただ掘り返すものなんじゃないかっていうふうにやっぱ勘違いしてる人もすごい多いなとは思ってるので、まあ、今度その海外の何かインタビューで、吉田さんが考えるその14とは関係なしにね、吉田さんが考える NFT って何ですかみたいな機会があれば、しっかりその新しいビジネスモデルでゲームが面白くなる可能性があるものだとは思ってるので、ただそれに対してやっぱそれ専用のゲームデザインが必要だと思ってるんで、まあ、その辺一回こう詳しくというか、解説する機会があればね、話してみようかなとは思ってるんで。まずはね、みんなが思うような悪いことはならないし、ゲームはまずね、お金がどうこういう前にやっぱ面白いかどうかとか、まあファンであるっていうことが最優先だと思ってるんで、そこはね安心してもらいたいです。はい。
That's a
But
lot to
looking at
translate.
how people are reacting to the subject matter, there also seems to be a good amount of people who may have it misconstrued as something that this is like a mining effort, that's something that you are digging up. And there might be some misconception about what exactly an NFT is. And so I would love, if there is an opportunity to speak to the subject of NFTs in an interview or something that's probably, not probably, I'm sorry, in an interview that is completely unrelated to Final Fantasy XIV. Because it is an opportunity for a new business model. And I do believe that the vehicle itself could potentially be something that makes the concept of a video game a little bit more interesting.
I'm not done.
But that being said, we would need a specific game design that would accommodate for that concept of NFTs. And so if there ever is an opportunity to go into it in deeper detail, I would like to sort of talk about it. And I think there's a potential of utilizing it without going in a wrong direction or like a bad direction. And with any sort of video game, I think before we even talk about the financials or like monetary discussions, I think we need to make sure that the game itself is fun and are there fans of the game? And so I think that's a very important piece that we still need to keep in mind with games.
さあ、というわけでまあ、簡単に言うと14に NFT は入ったり来たりしないので安心してねって話なので以上です。じゃあテスト終わって少し休憩したら本番行きましょうか。
はい。
But yeah, again, no NFTs in FF14, so don't worry. But yeah, I think that's it for now. We will take a little bit of a break and then we will get into the main part
That
of the
conversation
podcast.
got a little bit dangerous.
Alright,
was
so
like,
the letter live will
I was
kick
like,
off in
yeah,
15
bye.
minutes.
That was
11
yeah,
a.m.
bye.
本番はこの後15分後11時、午前11時から始まりますので、一旦このまま2人に戻りますが、そのままページほっといていただければ始まりますので、
Was I not behind the rock?
後ほどお会いしましょう。So we are going back to the cover image, but see you in 15 minutes. では一旦失礼します。はい。See you later.
Oh shit, it actually went offline. Did the stream go offline? It looks like it did. Ah, Ancient Flare! Yes. Nice. Rest in peace, Bolt. Ah, yes. I'm on Reddit right now looking, just checking out the response. Am I capped yet? Oh no, I'm still missing a little bit. I don't want to do Praetorium though. I really don't. Do you got like a good trial we can do? There we go, they're back. Twitch just has a terrible... Twitch is just terrible about refreshing. Oh, yeah, cool.
There is no turning back!
I was really wishing for one of the Endwalker trials.
Steel yourself!
I would like to rage! That's a hit. Inner release.
Twofold is my wrath, twice cast my foes!
Roar of the Thunder? What's that? I don't even remember any of these mechanics anymore. Oh, okay. That's what it was.
All creation trembles before my might! Behold, fury given form! My wrath is a ceaseless torrent!
Oh, oh, oh. Oh. You can't touch me. I used to play Toho.
No more games.
Okay, no more games. That's cool.
To ashes with you. Impressive. Very well, I shall bring all to bear. Lightning Shift! Tempest Surge! Lightning Shift! Steel yourself! You're mine! Tempest Surge! You are stronger than I dared hope.
Oh. Oh, yeah.
おはようございます。
おはようございます。We're back.
第68回ファイナルファンタジー14プロデューサーレターライブをお送りいたします。Thank you very much for tuning in to Final Fantasy 14 Letter from the Producer Live number 68. 皆さんに自己紹介お願いします。Please introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Naoki Yoshida, producer and director of Final Fantasy 14. 皆さんおはようございます。そしてこんばんはな人も多いですね。ファイナルファンタジー14プロデューサー兼ディレクターの吉田です。よろしくお願いしま
よろ
す。
しくお願いします。
お願いします
そして本日進行を務めますコミュニティチームモルボルこと室内です。よろしくお願いします。My name is Toshio Murochi, also known as the Fox Clone. You are a global community producer here. I will do the MC stuff for today's live letter. はい、そして、本日はですね、本日の、プロデュ PLL も、日本語と英語のバイリンガル放送でお送りいたしますので、我らがあゆみさんがスクエニアメリカオフィスから入ってくださっております。So once again, today's letter live is fully bilingual in both Japanese and English. So we have a special member from Square Enix America office. あゆみさんです。おはようございます。
おはようございます。スクエアニックスアメリカの徳武あゆみです。通訳を務めさせていただきます。よろしくお願いします。Hello everyone, this is Amy from the Square Enix Los Angeles office. I'm going to be supporting for the translations today.
はい。で本日の、PLL はですね、このセットアップをご覧になった方もいるかと思いますが、吉田さんが話したことは、あゆみさんが通訳してくださいます。で私が喋ることは私が自分で、翻訳しながら進めていきますので、で対して 私からは大して重要な話は出ませんので、私が私のことを翻訳し忘れてるなというのはスルーしておいていただければと思いますので、よろしくお願いします。So today's setup is Yoshida-san explain things in Japanese, and then Aimi-san will do Yoshida-san's voice in English, and I will translate myself. はい、そして今日の PLL はですね、前半戦はファイナルファンタジー14の新たなる挑戦、次の10年に向けてということで、吉田さんからいろいろご説明いただきます。そして後半はですね、休憩挟みまして、後半は、フォーラムで事前に募集しました、パッチ 6.0 をプレイしてみての、Q&A セッションをお送りしたいと思います。So today's Letter Live has two major parts, and then first half is the kind of presentation by producer director Naoki Yoshida, which is where we are and where we are going for next 10 years. And then we have a taking break, and then latter half is the Q&A session based on your gameplay of 6.0 expansion.
はい。
はい、ということで、始めてまいりたいと思います。
ですね、私がこっちを見てるとき、はい、こうなってるときは皆さんのコメントを見てるときなので、今日こういうシチュエーションすごい多いと思うんで、ご理解ください。
So you might see me turning my head sometimes when I'm speaking, but I am actively looking at the comments that people are making as you watch the stream. So you may see me turned this way, but I am still participating. So just wanted to let you know.
まあちょっとね、日本のコメントでね、この手の通訳放送はテンポ悪いんだよなって言ってる人いるんですけど、まあ、グローバル全体にねお届けしているので、吉田の長い話をですね、あゆみさん一生懸命ね通訳してくれてるんで、そこはね、それを言われると我々ちょっと悲しくなるんで、そういうまあ、ファンフェスのステージぐらいで思って見てもらえると嬉しいかな。
And we do see some comments about how translations kind of drag on the pace. It doesn't feel as quick, but Emi is here to try to facilitate communicating Yoshida's comments. It makes us sad if you're disappointed that it's in two languages, but perhaps if you look at it like a FanFest stage event where we have the Japanese and English, maybe that might help it make it more fun.
コメントで今日は 6.1 はがっつりじゃないんですかっていうのもあるんですが、so we see some comments. Do we have any further updates for 6.1? So 6.1 がっつりってことだけはないんですよね。
そうですね、パッチ 6.1 の内容と紹介に関しては、3月4日、
はい、4日です
に、パッチ 6.1 特集パート1の PLL をやる予定なので、6.1 のまあでも今日ちょっと出ますけどね、6.1 の詳しいところはそっちに譲ります。
So yeah, today's broadcast is not literally going to be just about 6.1. We may touch upon it, but then the details are going to be explained on another episode of the live letter on March the 4th. This is JST, but we will go into details at that timing.
あとはまあなんかこう重大発表的なねニュアンスで取られてるけど。楽しく気楽に行くので、皆さんもですね、緊張せず気楽に今日は見てもらえると嬉しいです。
And some people might be bracing for a very important announcement when we talk about today's broadcast, but that's not the intent. We would love for you to just relax and just have fun with the broadcast.
面白いですよ。
なんかこういうこと言うたびにさ、よしやめんのみたいなの出るんだよな。ついに俺さ、でもいつだっけ、新情報発表会でさ、言ったばっかだよね、ライフワークだって言ってるんで、そういう話じゃないんですよ。
I understand we were talking about like the future of Final Fantasy XIV, but every time we mention something like that, people are like, "Oh no, is Yoshida going to quit?" And no, I think I told us when we were doing our announcement showcase in February. It's like 14 is my life work. It's not like I'm going to just up and leave suddenly.
もうそんなんで嘘つきってやるの嫌だから、なんだろう、そんなね自分の去就をね重大発表しますみたいなねこと言わないですよ。
ちょっと恥ずかしいね。
I don't want people to be going around saying, "Oh, you're such a liar," because I mean, I'm not the type of person who would make these kinds of like my personal announcements on a live stream. So.
さあでは、やっていきましょうか早速。前半だいたいね2時間ぐらい、後半も多分2時間ぐらい、 使うんじゃないかなと思います。なのでご飯食べたりですね、今日土曜日なんで飲める人はお酒飲みながらとかでも全然いいので、楽しくいきましょう。
So we're looking at, at least for the first part, we're looking at about 2 hours broadcast. And so you're free to do like you have dinner or like eat lunch as you're watching the broadcast. It is a Saturday, so if you want to start drinking early, you're more than welcome to do so.
Drink something.
さあ行きましょう。では、画面切り替えてもらっていいかな。はい。じゃあ早速いきますが、改めて今日お話しする内容のトピックおさらいしておきましょう。
Okay, so jumping right in, let me go over the topics we will cover.
で、まず一つ目はちょっとですね、14これまで、正確にはね11年やってきているので、ちょっと振り返りを最初にね、皆さんへの感謝も込めて、やりたいと思います。
First topic, of course, it's been about 11 years, to be accurate, how long 14 has been going on. So we'd like to kind of do a little bit of a retrospect, just convey our thanks to our players and look back on everything.
でそれを振り返った上でですね、ちょっとこの先じゃあさらにもう10年は僕続けたいと思ってるんで、この先10年さらに14を発展させていくために、新しい挑戦やっていきますよといろいろそこについて、どんなことやっていくのかというのをお知らせしたいと思います。
And then once we do look back on our past, then we look forward to the next 10 years. Because as I mentioned, I would love to continue having Final Fantasy XIV for yet another 10 years. So there are many different things that we want to do in order to continue expanding Final Fantasy XIV, many challenges that we want to take on. So I want to touch upon some of those items in today's broadcast.
でここまでいったら1回休憩を挟んで、放送の後半として3つ目、パッチ 6.0 行月のフィナーレ、プレイしてみて何かありますかというので Q&A 事前に質問募集していましたので、それに対していろいろお答えしていこうかなと思ってます。
And then once we do that, we will have a break in between, and then it'll go into the latter half of the show, where we kind of asked the players, what did you think after playing 6.0? And so we will do a bit of an end block of Q&A.
You know, just go over what's going to happen in the next 10 years, now that the main story for this part has ended.
Oh, 10 more years, huh? Is Yoshida going to kick off his living dead?
あったよね、確かにね。吉田の量産を開始しました。クローンの吉田が誕生したので紹介しますとか、そういうのじゃねえかって書かれてましたね。
But yeah, I think I've seen comments similar to that, and like people saying, "Oh, we have mass manufactured Yoshida clones."
なぜか私はもう完了してますよって書いてある。
そう。
Yeah, then I say I've done already.
では早速行きましょうか。まずは正確にはね11年なんですけど、大きくくくって10年ここまで皆さんとねやってきたのをちょっと振り返っていきたいと思います。
I really much.
Okay, so jumping into the timeline
just
here.
Speak louder.
Of course, the
mic's kind of far
it's 11 years, but like we'll call this the 10 years of Final Fantasy 14.
いろいろありましたね。2010年サービスを開始して、その12月に運営体制ね全部開発も、一新して、僕はここから参加ですね。
So first, 2010 was when it all started. Many things that happened had caused us to sort of reconsider the development structures, and there was a lot of changes that were made in order to reboot the title. So this is when I joined in, Yoshida joined into the project.
で2011年の10月14日に、14日が縁起がいいだろうっていうので申請をやりますよって発表してますね。
Life to the game.
And then 2011, October 14th, we were thinking 14th must bring us good luck, and that's when we announced that we are going to have Final Fantasy 14 Reborn.
海外の皆さん詳しいよね。 あゆみさんもインタビューにいてくれたと思うけど、9番を遊んでみたいので9番のサーバーを復活させる気はありませんかってクラシックファイナルファンタジー14やる気はありませんかってナイトメアって答えたやつみんな覚えてて、ナイトメアってすげえ言ってるコメントで。
I love how the comments from the West are. I love how they know all these details, and I'm sure Amy had sat into the interviews as well. But people were asking about, oh, are you going to make an FF14 1.0 classic like WoW Classic did theirs? And Yoshida answered, Nightmare. And so people are calling the time of 1.0 in Nightmare. It's awesome.
Yeah, I heard pretty bad things about 1.0.
の11月11日にですね、時代の終焉トレーラー公開とともにですね、一旦申請の準備のために Q14 のサービスを
And now I'm like, as a 14 player, I'm looking over at the WoW side. I'm just like,
November
I'm glad I didn't stay on that boat.
2012, we titled it The End of an Era, and we sort of closed the service for the original version of Final Fantasy XIV.
まあ9番からねやってくださってる方も結構いるし、9番の捉え方って結構まちまちだとは思うんですけど、9番のラスト付近はそれはそれでまた独特のゲームデザインの MMO として結構ね好きだった、面白くなったんだよって言ってくれる人たちもたくさんいて、まあ、僕らシャットダウンするのを決めながらも作ってたところに対してそういうね評価をもらってたりするのはとてもありがたいことなので、僕らもすごいね実は励みになってました。
And of course, people who have been playing since the original 1.0 may have their different opinions about how the game had played. But there were people who thankfully acknowledged how 14 was starting to shift, and they did take notice about how the game design was unique, despite we were looking to sunset the original version. And so it was wonderful that people acknowledged that, and that was very encouraging for us as a team.
ちなみに9番から今日視聴してくださってる方でQ14 からやってるよって方、どうですか？手を挙げてもらってもいいですか？
So if I could have people in the comments, by show of hands, I don't know how you raise your hands, but like anybody who's been playing since 1.0, the original Final Fantasy XIV, we would love to see who's been with us since then.
めっちゃいるな。
すごい、there's a lot.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Wow. That is actually a lot.
That's amazing. Thank you guys.
I heard some pretty bad things about WoW nowadays. I stopped playing during.
あと10年お互い健康に気をつけて
I stopped playing during Warlords of Draenor.
But yeah, we're looking forward to the next 10 years. So yeah, let's all take care of our health and keep
was actually
going.
quite alright.
That's awesome.
で、2013年ですね、ベータテストをやりながら、2013年8月27日についに新生オルゼア正式サービス開始することができました。
So moving on, 2013, we start our beta testing for A Realm Reborn, and then August 27 of the same year, we were able to relaunch as A Realm Reborn.
振り返るとですね、2011年の3月ぐらいから一気に新生14の設計だけ5人ぐらいで設計をスタートして、2011年の6月から6人のプログラマーがコードを書き始めたのを覚えてるので、実質そこから2年2ヶ月で新生リリースしてるので、もうちょっと驚異的今振り返ると。
And looking back, so that it was 2011 in March, we started at least doing the framework, just the design structure first, and it was a very small team that worked on it. It was 5 people who started on the base framework, and then starting June of that same year, 2011, we had 6 programmers starting to write code. And considering it took about 2 years and 2 months
from what I hear, I didn't really. I think it wasn't really good.
で、念願だったですね、ファンフェスっていうのを2014年の10月からですね、スタートすることができました。今でも覚えてます。
Or 2016.
And of course, by 2014 October, we were able to
during the first
hold our
raid tier
very first
of,
fan festival. That was something that we
Heaven's
really
Word.
wanted to do.
初めてやった北米の ファンフェスの基調講演でステージに上がった時の大歓声でですね、もう足が震えて
I still remember it today. The first time we did our fan festival, and we started out in the North America region. And when I took the stage to do my keynote presentation, and just the cheer that I received from the audience, man, my legs were shaking when I was up there.
で初の拡張であるヘブンズワード、2015年の6月にリリースして、その後の8月に、全世界累計登録者数が500万人を突破したと。
Yep, that's me.
And then next we were able to launch our first ever expansion pack, Heaven's Word, in 2015 June, and then soon after we reached 5 million registered players.
でこの辺りはですね、我々開発チームもですね、高難易度高難易度って言われてよしやっちゃうぞって言ってキリッキリなのをやったらですね、いや難しすぎんだろうってなってですね、我々もいろいろな失敗を繰り返しつつですね、今につながってる本当重要な時期だったと思います。ここは。
But this is around the time when people were starting to clamor for higher difficult content, and the dev team got so excited about, oh yeah, you want difficult, and so we gave you a really
Gordius, the first rate tier for,
and people started complaining now about, oh no, this is too difficult.
It was really difficult. It was
so we were trying
super
to
difficult.
Find that balance. It was trial and error trying to get to that nice balance. But I think it was really important that we're making that conversation.
The first tier.
あれでね、僕は人生の格言の一つを学んだんですよ。プレイヤーの皆さんには、いや簡単だったなって言われるぐらいがちょうどいいんだなと。
It was the tier that broke
then it was then that I learned this very valuable lesson, which is I think it's best to keep the difficulty where the players would walk out of it saying, that was pretty easy.
で、グレンドリベレーターを発売したのが2017年6月で、この辺りからようやくこうバトルコンテンツ以外の、そのもう14の世界に住むみたいなことをより具体化していけるようになったのがこのぐらいの時期で、それがね、功を奏してですね、登録者数が、この時点で1000万人突破と。
Then, of course, Stormblood released in 2017 June, and we started looking at various other types of content aside from battle and combat, content that would involve the feeling of living in the world of Final Fantasy XIV. And I think that really struck a chord with people.
Well, there was housing before,
resonating with it, which thankfully got us to our registered player number up to 14 million players.
思い出されるグレンのリベレーター初日のね、ラウバーン透滅戦。
すごかったですね。
Oh yes, Raoban Savage.
And I still remember when Stormblood first launched, Raoban Extreme in the 90s.
So
ありましたね。
I think we all remember
instant
that.
servers, when you
start when you
start like a solo duty, you are queued into an instant server.
But I mean, even with that failure, we learned from it, and we were able to build a much better queuing system.
Stuck on the same content.
そしてですね、
for like 2 days, it was so bad.
1400万人
People started lining up so that they can do it.
2019年には1600万人を突破と。
Like forming like physical lines of characters.
So I'm sorry, this is where we hit 14 million is 2018 August. And then moving on, we reached 16 million players by 2019 May. So thank you so much for all the players that are staying with us.
そして続けてですね、2019年に、漆黒のヴィランズを発売し、その年末にはですね、全世界累計登録者数が1800万人を、突破となりました。
And moving on, we released Shadowbringers in 2019, and soon after, we surpassed 18 million registered players.
Just
数字に関して言うと、単純に数字だけをこう見ていくと、
I would say the best expansion and Walker was so goddamn
増えるペースっていうのがばらついてるように見えるのかもしれないんですけど、実は 体験したことのある人が増えれば増えるほど、新規が当然減るんですよね、パイが決まってるところから新しい人を呼ばなきゃいけないので、だからここまでの数字になってるのにさらに数百万増やしていくっていうこと自体はとてもすごいことで、マーケティング PR チームがコミュニティの皆さんと一緒になって達成してきてる数字なので、本当にこれはね誇らしい数字だと思ってます。
I wasn't there for Heaven's Word launch. I came in
looking at the
mid
numbers.
Heaven's Word.
It might
On
seem
Storm's Blood,
like
I got called in to work
there's
the
no
night of
real like nothing of note. Oh yeah, the numbers are just increasing. But if you consider this,
okay,
if we have a certain number of people already playing the game, and if we have a single pie that were taking numbers out of, like you would expect the numbers to start going down, but it's interesting that we see more and more players join us even after all these years. We are seeing millions signing up. So of course, I really want to acknowledge the development team, operations team, but also the marketing and PR teams working with
the real marketing and PR teams are
promote
us.
The title and get
those of us that go around and be like,
I'm very proud of their achievements.
Have you heard of the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV that has a free trial, which it doesn't anymore?
累計登録者数が2500万人を突破し、
And
ちょっと昨日の数字とか見てないですけど、まだ全然まだ上がってってると思うので、で12月7日ですね、すみません、2週間ほどちょっと遅延をさせていただくことにはなってしまいましたが、行月のフィナーレを発売して、ハイデリンゾディアーク編完結というところまでこぎつけてこられたなと。
It was just a meme. It was a copy
Of course,
pasta.
2021, which is last year, we surpassed 25 million registered players. I did not see yesterday's numbers, or like as of yesterday's numbers, but I do understand that our numbers are still increasing. And then afterwards, I know we had to delay the release by about 2 weeks. Again, apologies for
going
the
out
delay,
to convert
but
the
we were able
masses
to
to
release
the religion
Endwalker,
that is Final
and
Fantasy
finally we were
XIV.
able to conclude the overarching story of Hydaelyn and Zodiark.
まあ長かったようで、僕は結構あっという間の11年でした。でも本当にね、世界中のプレイヤーの皆さん、光の選手の皆さん、メディアの皆さんもね、関係各社の皆さんにも本当にものすごくこんなに支えてもらうタイトルは他にないだろうと思うぐらい支えていただいてここまで来れたので、改めて本当に感謝をお伝えしたいと思います。ありがとうございます。
And it feels like a long time, but man, these 11 years went by very quickly for me, and all of our warriors of light, our players, members of the media, all of our supporting partner companies as well. There were just so many people that supported us throughout this all. So I do want to take this opportunity to convey my gratitude from the bottom of my heart. So I sincerely thank everybody.
はい。あとは本当ね、開発チームにも本当に厳しいスケジュールでやってきてて、実は拡張パッケージそのものの開発期間って1年とか、下手すると1年切ってたりするんで、本当に頑張ってきてもらいました。
And I also want to acknowledge the development team as well. They were always working against a very harsh schedule, and even developing some of our expansion packs. Sometimes we have only about a year or even less than a year to get through all of the tasks that needed to get done. So I really want to show my appreciation to them as well.
さて、ではこれを踏まえてですね、ここまで歩んできたその11年、9番の状態を考えれば、これ以上ないぐらいの成功をさせていただいたと思ってます。ここはあんまり言葉を隠さずに成功できてると思ってるので、それでいいと思ってるんですけど、ここまではある意味もう過去になったので、ここからさらに次の10年また挑戦を続けていきたいと思います。
And looking at the trajectory here and the path we've walked down, I think I want to consider this a success from what we had taken and what state it was in when we had first taken on the project, and to bring it to where it is now. I'm not ashamed to declare it. It might be a little awkward in the Japanese, but I believe it is a success, and I think it's a good thing that we've gotten here. But now that we have gotten this far, all of this is now in the past, and so we want to look to the future. We want to see what kind of challenges we can take on.
というわけで2つ目のセクションである14の新しい挑戦と題してですね、今後どういうことをやっていくよというのをお伝えしていきたいと思います。
So, for the second part of this presentation, as you see, it is entitled Newfound Futures. So, I would like to discuss what we are intending to do.
まずですね、僕としてはですね、社長からやめろって言われるか、やめろって言われても抵抗するとは思うんですけど開発チーム運営チームからやめろって言われるか死ぬかぐらいの以外では14やめる気がなく続けていきますので、この先もぜひ皆さんよろしくお願いします。
And me personally, as Yoshida, unless the CEO says, Yoshida, you need to leave, and even then I think I'm going to fight him. Or if like the development team, the operations team want to kick me out, or if I, God forbid, die, those are the only extreme cases I would even consider leaving the 14 project. I want to continue working on Final Fantasy 14, so your continued support will definitely be appreciated.
I'm glad I work in healthcare.
というわけでですね、まず今回その10年さらにこう14をせっかくねここまで日本初のそのサービスでこの規模まで来れるってなかなかあることじゃないので、この先の10年に向けてまずは 7.0 をめがけて、新しいことに挑戦していこうと思ってます。
Of course, with this title, and considering that this game was launched from a Japanese development studio, and being able to expand to this global scope, it's a rarity, I think. And so my next goal, my future goal, is now looking at 7.0 and leading up to that, what can we do?
コメントが7.0って言ったかで
大丈夫もうシナリオ会議の1回目やったから
Something like that is hard to find in a lot of places.
People are already speculating about, oh no, 7.0 confirmed? Well, I mean, we are already talking about scenario for 7.0. I'm not afraid to say that we do intend on doing a 7.0.
まずここに向けてちょっとコンセプトを話をさせてもらいます。まずその一つ目がこちらになります。
Now, that being said, I do want to establish what my thinking is and the concept behind what we're trying to do leading up to 7.0. And this is the first point.
Advancements as a solo and multiplayer
これ具体的にどういうことっていうのはこの後ちゃんとお話ししようと思います。
And of course, I will go into detail as to what this exactly means.
そしてですね、7.0 に向けて、チャレンジとしてですね、こちら、第1次グラフィックスのアップデートの準備開発っていうのをやっていきます。
And then next, again, leading up to 7.0, and one of the challenges that we want to take on is our first graphical update, at least the preparation and the development for it.
Graphical update.
なんで第1次ってついてるかっていうのも後で、この項目の掘り下げでちょっとお話ししようと思います。
And of course, when we dive into each of these different points, I will touch upon why we are calling this the first graphical update.
Maybe Vieira
一応先に言っとくコメントが結構多いんで7.0 で PS4 が遊べなくなるってことはないです。それはないのでお約束しておきます。
Are they dropping PS4 support?
I do want to clarify though, because I am seeing a lot of comments wondering about this. This does not necessarily mean that we are ceasing the support for PS4 as of 7.0. So I do want to clear that out first.
PS4 players off. Okay.
そしてですね、今日3つ目、せっかくなのでパッチ 6.X シリーズでどんなことをやっていくかというのもお知らせします。
And then the third point, I mean, since we are here, I would like to take the opportunity to cover what we are planning to do throughout the 6.X series as a sort of roadmap.
はい、では各項目、詳しくよりお伝えしていこうと思います。
Diving into the details.
まずコンセプトの一つ目ですね。一人でもみんなでも遊べる RPG へ、さらなる進化をしていきますと。
So our first concept, an even better RPG, alone or with friends.
Alone or with
これ
friends. Yes, I can be.
何かというとですね、
I can
4
be
で
my
字の
lone
ことなんですけど、
wolf,
そのファイナルファンタジー
lone wolf player.
14、一応ジャンルとしては MMORPG って呼ばれてます。
So, I mean, it is what it says, of course, but yes, I understand that Final Fantasy XIV as a game genre would be categorized as an MMORPG.
そこでですね、僕この11年ファイナルファンタジー14をやってきて、世界中のプレイヤーの皆さんとイベントだったりファンフェスも含めてですけど、本当たくさんのゲーマーの人たちと話をしてきました。
And of course, throughout the 11 years of doing Final Fantasy XIV, we did various events, gaming events, including Fan Festival, and I had the opportunity to speak with the different gamers.
そこでですね、あとそのマーケティングチームに市場調査とかをしてもらって、これね定期的に拡張のたびにやってるんですけど、やっぱりそこで出てくる答えっていうのが、なかなかブレイクスルーできないなっていうのがあったりします。
And of course, I would have my marketing teams perform market research as well. And this is something we regularly do when we start to plan for upcoming expansion packs. And with the information that we receive, and there's always like a question that we never seem to find a way to break through.
2つあって、1つはファイナルファンタジーシリーズ大好きなんだよ、すごいファンなんだ、全部やってるよ、ただし11と14以外ねっていうのがめちゃくちゃ悔しい。
So there's actually two, and one of them is we see there's a lot of players that love Final Fantasy and many that claim they've played all of the Final Fantasies except for 11 and 14, which is very frustrating.
11もね今かなりアップデートをかけてかなり大部分ねソロで遊べるように快適にしてますが、14はさらにその先へ行きたいと思ってます。
And of course, we are paying attention to Final Fantasy XI players as well, and we've made various updates. I think it has become very solo-friendly recently, but with Final Fantasy XIV, we want to go beyond that.
あとはもう一つはですね、オンラインなんだよね。
What are they gonna do?
めんどくさい。
Are
人と
they gonna
遊ぶ
just
の
make it
いや
a-
なんか
make it as
人間
kind of
関
like
係
a
作るのいや
single player game?
っていうのがですね、やっぱりナンバーワンなんですよね。そのプレイをしない理由っていうところで。
The second point we are trying to reach a breakthrough is people who comment about, oh, online play, I don't want to deal with having to play with other people. I don't want to develop relationships online. And that's actually a very large reason, if not the number one reason, many players kind of hesitate playing 14.
だから10年かけて MMORPG っていうジャンルじゃなくて、一人でもみんなでも遊べる RPG っていうジャンルにしたいと14を。
So what I want to do here is spend the next 10 years and break out of that MMORPG category. I want this to be an RPG that can be enjoyed alone or with friends.
まずなので、7.0 でまでの間、フェイスシステムの大規模アップデートっていうのをやっていきます。
So, as a lead up to 7.0, or until that time, we will continue to make updates to the trust system.
Oh,
パッチ 6.1 から 6.5 までの5つのメジャーパッチで全メインクエストの必須 ID と4人の透滅戦を全てフェイス対応します。
So as it says here, trust compatibility for all main scenario dungeons and 4-player trials to be added in patch 6.1 through 6.5.
oh, that is ambitious.
順
That
次
is
なのでね、
ambitious.
パッチ例え
That's
ば
cool.
6.2 とかを見ると中途半端なところまでしか対応されてないとかいうことがある可能性は高いんですけど、それにね怯えているといつまでたってもできないので全部一気には不可能なので、 もうなのでこの 6.1 から 6.5 つまり 7.0 までの間を次に飛び上がるためにもうどんどん順次やっていくという期間に当てさせてください。
And so, of course, these are going to be incremental implementation. And so you might look at, say, patch 2 point something and 6.2, and you might notice that maybe not all of the dungeons have been supported with the trust system compatibility. But if we are afraid to make progress and be just in the middle of work in a certain major patch update, we won't be able to make progress. I think it's impossible to do everything at once. So we are trying to address this as we can, and we're looking at this as a preparation for
trust compatibility.
7.0.
It means you
and
can
so
run
we would
dungeons
like
with
to ask
NPCs
for
rather than
your
people.
understanding as we lay these foundations.
その第1弾となるパッチ 6.1 では
basically
新生オルゼア編のうち 2.0
So basically the
範囲
AI
を全て対応します。
heals or DPSs and
So
fills
the
in
first
the empty slots.
implementation, patch 6.1, will make A Realm Reborn, and this is just patch 2.0 range, and the scenarios duty become trust compatible.
そしてですね、それに伴って一部初期のですねメインクエスト ID とか、透滅戦もリニューアルします。
And then further improvements will be made to some low-level main scenario dungeons and trials.
でちょっと注意なんですけど、
I would like to see those improvements,
蒼天の石ガルドに
because
入ってから
the low-level dungeons
8人透滅戦ストーリー上に出てく
all
る
the dungeons
あれらはちょっとやっぱり
before,
コストを全見積もりしたんですけど、どうしてもこ
level
の 6.1 から 6.5 までの期間では対応しきれないので、8人の透滅戦に関しては 7.0 以降順次対応していくつもりです。
terrible. They're pretty good back in the day.
You may see
They're
the
okay
disclaimers
back
on
in
the
the day,
bottom, but for the 8-player trials, especially those with the Heaven's Word expansion, I'm afraid we are unable to update it at this time. We tried to calculate all the cost and the resources that it would take for us to address all of this within that sort of 6.1 through 6.5 timing, but I'm afraid we would be unable to allocate the resources for it, so we will get to it after 7.0. Yeah, these updates will be considered for 7.0 or later.
まあもちろん皆さんご存知の通り、その通常のねマッチングがなくなるわけじゃないので、あくまでストーリーを一人で進めていきたいっていう人のための機能なので、レベリングルーレットだったりねマッチングっていうところはそのまま継続していくので、そこはご承知おきください。
And of course, we don't intend to do away with the regular matching systems. Your leveling dungeons and queue matching and duty finders will still be active and available. These trust compatibility is primarily for those who have a strong desire to play through these story dungeons on their own.
で、ですね、8人透滅戦は今回行月のフィナーレでハイデリン透滅戦でテストケースとしても含めてやったんですけど、やれることはなんだろう確証を得られたんですけど、まあ、相当やっぱりコストがかかるっていうのとギミックから調整していかないといけないっていうこともあってまずは数の多い ID から優先させていただいてます。あとはね8人なんで責任判のかかり方がちょっと減るんでやっぱり。まあここは逆にマッチングの面白さみたいなところも味わってもらいたいので一旦7.0 以降にさせてください。
And of course, with these 8-people trials or 8-person battles, we did try it out with the Mother Crystal trial, and we were able to see success as like a test case,
really hard
but
to find,
it did require a lot of resources for us to build it, and then if we were to start applying that system to existing dungeons, we have to adjust the mechanics so that it would accommodate for the trust system. So at this time, we made the decision to move forward with just the instanced dungeons. And with an 8-person trial, I think that sort of reduces the responsibility per person going into the match, hopefully. So we're hoping that players would still jump into like a duty finder and hopefully get the enjoyment out of matching up with random people. So at this time, we are unable to address it within the 6.1 through 6.5 period, but we are looking to it for 7.0 or later.
でちょっと注意なんですけど、
はい、
まあどうしてもフェイスっていう呼び方をすると、暁といけんのかなとか名のある NPC といけんのかなってイメージがちょっと強いと思うんですけど、ストーリー上こうそのマッチングでしかいけないからこそ、じゃあ俺は他のことをやってくるみたいなのでこうみんなちょっといなくなったりとかしてたと思うんですよ。あれまで全部変えるはさすがに無理なので特に序盤とかは冒険者ギルドのメンバーだったりとか、暁の光のなんだろう、こう光の加護を持っているであろう他のメンバーみたいなイメージで組むケースが多いです。
And I want to make another point of caution here. Whenever we say trust compatibility, I think the thought that, oh, can we go into this dungeon with members of the Scions or any sort of named NPCs? And some of these story dungeons have key players kind of leaving the scene, like where the Warrior of Light goes into a dungeon and say somebody goes up and say, oh, I'm going to take care of matters over there. We can't have them come back just to join you in the dungeon. So in those cases, especially the earlier dungeons, you will see your trust members as like members from the Adventurers Guild or maybe other people who have the Echo accompany you in these dungeons.
ただ、まあキーになるストーリー上のキーになるポイントで、まあこいつはやっぱり本当はダンジョン一緒に行ってほしかったなってプレイヤーの皆さんが思ってるようなポイントは、シナリオ一部カットシーンも含めてちょっと変更してでもできるだけそれにまあ添えるように、やっぱりニーズヘックと対峙するときはエスニアも行ってほしかったなみたいなやつはできる限りそういうシチュエーションはなんとか対応していこうと思ってるので、一部ねそれもちょっと変更する部分があるかなとは思います。全部は無理なんで、はい、そこはご了承ください。
But that being said, there are certain key points in the story where we do understand players might have a very strong desire to have particular NPCs accompany you in a dungeon. So in some extreme cases, and not extreme cases, but like some key points, the team will make some adjustments. We may have to change a part of the script so that it'll make sense for the character to join you. An example I can come up with off the top of my head is probably the Nidhogg battle. I'm sure a lot of people would have thought like, oh, it would have been nice to have Estinian join as part of the Trust NPC. So we're considering having that available. So there may be some content that accommodates for certain NPCs to join you. I'm afraid we can't address all of them. We can't make it happen with all the dungeons. So your understanding on that would be appreciated.
Estinian is possessed by Nidhogg.
そしてですね、ごめんねちょっと長くて、
You're literally
6対
fighting
1
against
特集
Estinian.
パート1の時にまた詳しくお話ししようと思いますが、新生オルゼアの後半って結構今のレギュレーションと違ってしまってるこうダンジョンとかが多いので、かなり手が入ってますいろいろ。
Oh, the first Nidhogg
and
fight.
of course, with the details of 6.1, we will have a dedicated live letter for that, and I will delve into details at that time. But I do want to mention that
I was like, huh?
Much of the content, especially in the later half of ARR, differ in how the regulation is set up. So there are changes that have been made.
まあ例えばトトラクとかのドゥーンってなって
Yes, please revamp Totorak. Holy shit.
から床とかなくなってます。
For example, like when you go into the 1,000 Miles of Totorak, and you step on those like poison floors, and all of a sudden you are hit with heavy or slow, we're actually getting rid of that.
まあ、あとはちょっと Q14 から申請するのに急いで作ってちょっとライティング良くないなとかいうところのダンジョンもちょっと絵的な調整もそれなりにやってます。
And there are also some aesthetical changes that we wanted to make. There were certain areas of the earlier part of FF14 when we were trying to quickly just relaunch as a Realm Reborn. So there were areas where lighting may not have been 100% to what we would have been satisfied with. So we went back in and adjusted those as well.
そしてですね、まあ他にもですね、8人パーティーバトルの一番最初であるビットアッティン教習戦なんですけど、なくなります。
And then one of the first 8-person party battles that you encounter, I believe, is Camp Westwind. And I want to mention that we are doing away with that.
皆さん大ショック。
What? They're getting rid of Camp Westwind?
帝国の盾としてね、武人として
No! That
身
was
を
the
挺して
easiest.
やってきた、
That was the easiest
ね、
one.
帝
That
国将軍の
was
一
the one
人、
you.
まあ将軍ではないけ
That
ど
was
正しく
so
は
fun to
8
just
人で振る
wail
舞
on
いかがなものか
and
と
No!
ですね、
はい、
ちゃんとコストを
This
かけてです
cannot be
ね、
happening.
クエストインスタンスバトルとして、
Don't get
生まれ変わりま
rid
す
of
ので、
Kate Westwind.
Considering Litatine is like the shield of the Garland Empire. I mean, he's technically not a captain, but like, I mean, he's like a very prominent figure. I think it would be very humiliating for 8 people to come in and just beat him up. So we actually allocated the resources to rebuild that battle so that it's going to be a quest instanced battle that you go in.
まあ他にも内閣外閣と呼ばれている8人ダンジョン、あれらもですね、今回すべて4人用 ID に作り直してあります。
And then of course, the Praetorium and the Castrum Meridian, sorry, I can't pronounce it. Meridianum.
Meridianum.
Long Guardian bases that you need to go. They were originally 8-person content, but we are going to be changing it so that these are 4-person instanced dungeons.
なのでアルテマウェポン戦も切り出して、4人用としてシナリオモードを作って、であとラハブレアが憑依したサンクレットさんを8人でただひたすら無言で殴るっていうのもストーリー用のクエストインスタンスバトルとして作り直しているので
大好事ですね。
はい。
And so your battle with Ultima, or the Ultima weapon, will be changed to a 4-person battle. We are adjusting the scenario mode for that. And then where you go in and silently beat up La Habrea, aka Thancred being possessed by La Habrea, is also going to be adjusted so that it's like an instance during a story quest.
というわけで、まあそんな風にコストもですね、レギュレーション、今のプレイフィールにできるだけ近づけられるように、いろんな改修をしつつですね、パッチ 6.1 から 6.5 にかけて、4.x までの ID ですね、全部対応していこうと思いますので、よろしくお願いします。
So, yeah, in a nutshell, we are going in and making many adjustments so that it fits with, kind of follows suit better with how the game feels at this time. So throughout patch 6.1 through 6.5, we will be looking at the various content up to the 4.x series on the different instance dungeon to make adjustments.
さあ、ではこのセクション以上で次へ行きたいと思います。
What's next?
So moving on to the next section.
2つ目の新しい挑戦ですね。この、6.1 から6.5 までの期間、
first graphical
リリースまでの期間を使ってですね、まず、長期運営やっていく上で第一次のグラフィックスアップデートを、裏でね作業させていただきます。
So our second concept, and again, this is going to be the preparation that we will be doing throughout patch 6.1 through 6.5, leading up to the launch of 7.0. It is a long-term, or like preparations for long-term operation of the game, and we want to be doing this in the background, but we'll be preparing for our first graphics update.
ただ、なぜ第一次グラフィックスアップデートと言ってるかっていうと、2次も3次もあるんだろう、もしかしたらってことなんですけど、なぜかというと、もうここまで11年運営してきてると、もう尋常じゃないリソース、グラフィックスアセットが存在してます。はい。
So the reason why we named this the first graphical update, and that's of course to imply that there will probably a second and or third after this, but our game has been in operation for about 11 years, and considering all the graphical assets we have produced, it's an insane amount.
やっぱり一気に極限まで上げようとすると、絶対コンバートミスがあったりとか、そもそもコンバートの物理時間が足りなくて、もうデザインチームが無理です、絶対できませんっていう答えになってしまうので、やれることを一回やって引き上げたら、またその状態で安定が見えたら次のをやってっていう形で、その第1回目が来るんだというふうに思ってください。
And so if we attempted to update every single piece of graphical asset or resource that we've put into the game all at the same time, we might run into issues of conversion errors, or it's just physically takes a lot of time to convert everything. And consulting with the graphics team, they already know that we can't address everything all at the same time. And so what we're trying to do is address these in phases so that we can test out certain elements, see how they work, and if it seems to be stable, we move into the next phase. And so I think with our first graphical update, this will be like the first time we start testing some of these elements.
4K グレープスでめっちゃ吹いたんだけど。
I saw a comment that says 4K grapes. Thank you so much for that. That was hilarious.
あそこに 4K とかね、なんか40万ポリゴンとかかけてると、それこそ Q40 みたいにキャラクター全然表示できねえぞってことになっちゃうので、ちょっとこれから詳しく説明はしますよ。
That's hilarious, but like imagine spending so much resources just to get the grapes to be 4K resolution, and imagine spending 400,000 polygons just to depict a piece of fruit. We won't have enough resources to render our characters on screen.
You know, the funny thing is that is exactly what happened in 1.0, the original Final Fantasy 14.
そのグラフィックスアップデートは
That's the real irony.
7.0 での投入を予定してます。
So again, these graphical updates are intended to be implemented in 7.0.
その次期拡張パッケージまでの間っていうのを、僕らのそのグラフィックスのアップデートのシェーダー追加したりとか、いろんなものを追加していくテスト期間だったりプログラム期間だったり、それに合わせたグラフィックスアセットのコンバート期間というふうにさせてください。
So until 7.0, this will be, again, our preparation period. So this is where our team will be testing out various additions to the graphical elements, including different shaders. We'll probably need to write more programs. This is where when we're going to be doing our asset conversions, etc.
で、ここが重要なんですけど、あくまでやっぱりマルチプレイのゲームであるっていうのをぜひ覚えておいてほしくて、やっぱり画面全体の美しさ、9番から申請した時に感じていただいたように、やっぱり総合的な美しさ、世界の美しさっていうのを追求していきますよと、コンセプトとしてはね。
Of course, one key point that we want players to understand is that this is still a multiplayer game, and so we want to strive for the aesthetic quality of the overall picture and looking at the sort of beauty or the element, aesthetically pleasing sort of overall picture.
だってこう まさにね発売されたホライゾンのさクオリティでさ動くと思われたら困るわけだよあれで俺たち300人とか描画しなきゃいけないんでいやできはするんだけど、みんなの PC 動かないよ。
確かに。
And I see games like Horizon Forbidden West, and I don't want to get people to think that we'll raise our graphic quality to that. It's amazing, yes, but imagine having to render 300 different characters on screen at the same time at that quality. And it's not physically impossible, but then I don't think it's gonna run on anybody's PC.
そこは覚えといてね、みんなね。
So please keep that in mind.
ここをね、なんか勘違いされるのが一番怖い。
So I'm not.
That's
not
the
too
scariest
concerned
thing
about
for
the
people
graphical
to
update.
kind of misconstrue.
Maybe a little more skeleton.
で、当然なんですけど、
in the
アニメーションとか、
and
まあその世界全体、画面全体
if
の
we
美しさ
get
っていうとこ
more,
ろにやっぱり
character-
アニメーションとかライティングシステムっていうのも大きく寄与していると思うので、この
customization
あたりも
that would be great.
アップデートしていきます。
And of course, considering the sort of overall aesthetic, animation is going to be a key element we're looking at. Lighting is another element that we want to adjust as well.
まあ例えばアニメーションに使っている、よくねメモリがって言われますけど、メモリの割り当てをちょっと増やすことによって今までより長尺のこうエモートモーションが作れるとか、あとまあそのライトの数が増えることで実は潰れていたバックグラウンドのディティールがより見えてきて、リソースに手を加えなくても綺麗に見えるみたいなところもあるんで。
So what we mean by different updates to animation and lighting systems is, for example, I know people would automatically start talking about, oh yeah, memory issues with animation. So if we revisit some of the allocation of the memory for animation, it might allow us to create emotes with a longer animation loop, or with lighting, they're just having more lights than we had originally set up would allow for details that would have been sort of washed out or like not visible because of insufficient lighting to kind of show up. And so that will allow for an improvement in the graphical quality without us even having to adjust the elements that are already in the game.
まあ重要なところです。
はい。
スタンドアローンのゲームクオリティにはなりません。これをですね皆さん頭にすり込むためにもですね寝る前に必ず一度復習していただきたいぐらい。
And again, very important point. I want to stress again, the new graphics will not be comparable to those of standalone titles. This is again very important. I want you to remember it. I want you to repeat it before you go to bed. That's how much I want people to remember.
まあとはいえやっぱりグラフィックスいろいろ手を入れて
I would never be able to keep up
パフォーマンスというかね処理は
at the rate that they were
動作が
talking.
重くなりはするので 7.0 では最低動作保証スペックの条件がまあ変わるのは確定です、ただできるだけ多くのスペックにね対応できるっていうところはこれまでのポリシーでもあるので、捨てずにやっていきたいと思ってます、
So that being said, we do want to update the graphics for sure, and so that means your processor might require more power in order to render these graphics properly or like efficiently. So we will probably have to update the system requirements for your machines and your PCs. We will try our best to accommodate for as many models of machines to accommodate with the changes, but we do want to make you aware that it is pretty much guaranteed that we will have to update the system requirements.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely
でやっぱり気
crazy.
になるプレイステーション4なんですけど、この 6.x 期間中に、先行投入すると思いますけど PS4 版の最適化をやっていきます。
And I know people are wondering about PlayStation 4 support as of 7.0. I think what's going to happen, and this will probably be done prior to the launch of 7.0, so sometime within the 6.x series, we do want to optimize the PS4 version for sure.
でさらにですね、まあ、PC 版にあるようにグラフィックスオプションのカスタムっていうの PS4 版少ないんですけど、あれを増やしてですね、新しいその描画とか入れるとやっぱ重くなる部分があるので、重くても綺麗でいいやという人はオンにしてもらえばいいんだけど、まあ、オフにしてそのフレームレートを優先するみたいなことができるようにしていくので、 PS4 のサポートっていうのも少なくとも 7.0 のタイミングではしっかりやりますので。
So, and on top of that, there are various graphical configurations that you can set up on the PC version. Like you can customize some of the display options, and we understand that it's a bit lacking in the PS4 version. So we do want to implement options in the configuration so that you can select like prioritize frame rate, or if you want to, if you're okay with performance kind of dropping slightly, but still have the graphics performance, then you can select that option, whatnot. So I do want to assure you that we will continue supporting for PS4 at least until 7.0.
At least until 7.0. Well, oh, that actually looks really good.
みんなどう思うんだろう。
That's not
His
bad.
reactions are.
But how many faces can we choose from, and how many?
俺かと思ったって言ってる。
Some people think, "Oh, is that me?"
That's not bad.
そうそうそう。
But at the same time,
なんかさ、
I'm more
多分ね
focused on customization
これじゃない
options.
よね、多分みんな求めてるの。
I don't think this is what we are looking for. This is not what we would desire.
Oh, this
なん
is
か
not
疲
what
れ
we're
た
desiring.
って書かれてる。
Some
This is
people are
not-
saying this looks like a very tired Yoshida.
そう、なんか違うでしょ。
Yeah, but it kind of does feel awkward.
まあここまでリアルにはならんす。
So we aren't going to be.
Oh, we got
working
debated.
to make it look this real.
まあいわゆるフォトリアルを追求していくとグラフィックスアップデートってこっちに行きがちなんですけど、おそらくファイナルファンタジー14の世界やキャラクターが気に入ってくださってる方って多分こっちを求めてはいないと思ってます。
And some games, of course,
got you.
their intent is to lean towards that photorealistic depiction, and people tend to lean in this direction. But I think for those who enjoy the aesthetic of Final Fantasy XIV, this is not necessarily what we want to begin with.
では、今そのグラフィックスアップデートって実はテスト開発もスタートさせてるんですけどテストスタートしてからまだ1ヶ月と1週間ぐらいなんですね。
So with these graphical updates, we are already starting testing actually, and it's been about a month and a week.
なのでその1ヶ月と1週間ぐらいテストをして、まあこれだったらもう今出してもまあいけるだろうここまではと、まあこれ以上を目指すんだけど、まあ少なくとも一旦お見せしてもここまでは間違いなく大丈夫だよあると 7.0 でっていうのを用意してきたんでちょっと見ていきましょうか。
And so we are still very early in our testing stages, again, about a month or so testing, but we do have results that we're seeing that is, of course, we're going to aim higher than what we're going to be showing you, but I think it's coming out pretty nicely, and we are relatively confident. So let us show you some of these images.
こちらがですねテスト期間1ヶ月目のサンプルです。キャラクターですねまず。
So from first month of testing, so this is one of the samples.
これ左が今で右がテクスチャーをハイレゾリューション化してます。髪の毛も
Yo,
含めて。
that is
であ
so
とシェ
much
ーダーも
better.
1
That
枚
looks
出て
so
ます。
much better.
And so what you're
And
seeing
it's better
is
than
the
that
current image on the
creepy,
left, and then on the right,
uncanny
we've made the
valley like
textures, high
Creeplander.
resolution, and we've
This is
added
so
a
much
layer
better.
of shaders.
あと、セルフシャドウって言って自分の髪の毛の影が顔に落ちた時、まあその自分のオブジェクトが自分に影を落とすのをセルフシャドウって言うんですけど、そこも調整してるので、結構ね、セルフシャドウ実はすごい気になっててカットシーンとかでも。
And one thing that we did pay
look
attention
so
to was
good.
the self shadow, or whenever there's like an object that drops a shadow on yourself. Especially if you look at the bangs and the shadow it casts underneath it. That was something that I was kind of wanted to address. Looking at
because that's what everybody plays
in the past,
or at least most
でまあ
people.
これ1ヶ月目のサンプルなのでもっと上目指せるとは思ってるんですけど、動作保証あまりにも重くならないっていう意味では、今一旦お見せできるのはここまで、まあ、この上さらにいろんなことをやった上で最適化していって、
Yeah, it does look like mostly
や
it's
れる
the
よ
shading,
り高いところは目
the
指していこうかな
shader
と思
and
って
the
ます。
lighting, but it does give it
so of
a
course we
much
do want
better
to strive
touch.
for even better, but at this time I think from 1 month of testing and making sure that the game itself runs properly, I think this is what we can show at this time, and then we'll continue to test and we'll continue to sort of improve and then apply optimization.
まあいわゆるヒロシと呼ばれてる彼でやるとこんな感じですね。
Of course, our Derplander.
でちょっとミコってのサンプルです。
Ah, yes, finally.
There's a
The one that
sample
we
of them.
wanted to see the Miko
まあ、
because
戦月賞
that's
のボケ具
what
合
most of us
が
play.
まあなくなったりですね、髪の毛の柔らかいそのカールの印象とかってちゃんと出てるのと、まあセルフシャドウがボケてないんでね、綺麗にかかるようになります。
Yeah.
Of
I
course,
mean,
you
it
may
does look
notice
better,
the
but
face paint,
it's,
the war paint is a lot crisper now.
old
And then,
model
as
doesn't
mentioned
look bad at
earlier,
all.
self
It
shadow
really
is nicer. I think it's brings out the softness of her face.
まあこれがだいたい1ヶ月目だっていうのをぜひ認識しておいてください。
Oh, this roll looks good.
Again,
though.
just to remind you, this is after testing for about a month.
はい。まあこの方向性で良さそうよね、やっぱりね、みんなのコメント見てると。
Looking at everybody's comments, it seems like we are on the right track in terms of like the direction we want to take it to.
そうですね。Yeah, it looked like
でララフェルがね、一番難しいんですよ。
And the Lalfell was actually quite challenging.
なんかリアルにするところがなくて。
There are no areas really to make it quote unquote realistic, you know.
まあでも髪の毛綺麗になって、目の周りはものすごく鮮明になって、まあキャラメイクしておけばね、もちろんいろんなパターン作れるとは思うんですけど。
But I think the hair has definitely gotten more defined, and then the eyes has become very crisp, and it looks a lot more alive, so to speak. And with being able to
very
character
well-rounded and
create,
well-designed race.
I think it'll have like it will allow for players for a broad range.
そうね、肌の感じをどこまでそのなんだろう、本当にツルツルにするのかララフェルは。こう少しそうは言ってもちゃんと肌っていう感じを出すのかは結構ね調整が難しいところだとは思ってるので、ただ皆さんが求めてるであろう方向性は理解してるつもりなのでしっかり種族ごとにですね調整しながらいきたいなと思ってます。
And it's still a challenge to figure out how do we depict the surface of their skin. Like, do we make it completely like flawless, spotless, or do we actually give it some texture to make it look like skin? We want to believe that we understand what the players are looking for, but it is something that we still need to kind of explore.
まあなんて言ったってね、11年も皆さんと一緒にこのゲーム作ってきてるんで、
そうですね。
皆さんが求める方向は理解してるつもりではあります。はい。
But again, we've been with you guys for about 11 years at this time, so we want to believe that we understand what the players are looking for.
ですいません、ちょっとテスト1ヶ月目ということでですね、キャラクターサンプルとしては以上になります。またなんだろう、途中でね、ファンフェスのタイミングとかあればまた途中経過とかね、お知らせしていけたらなと思ってます。
So yeah, because we are still in the early
stuff to do
stages of
Final
testing,
Fantasy 14.
as for character samples, that is all that we have at this time. We're hoping that we can continue to update everybody on the status. Perhaps maybe next time we can do it at like a fan festival or something like that.
じゃあ改めてですね、そのキャラクター、まずそのグラフィックス、第一次グラフィックスアップデートでキャラクターに関する表現のアップデート項目をお知らせしておきます。
Okay, so just wanted to recap all of the different elements that we look to update for our first set of graphical updates in terms of characters.
まずですね、全体的にテクスチャーを高解像度にしていきます。髪とか肌とか、それから今日ちょっとねご紹介できてないですけど、装備品のテクスチャーの解像度も上げていきます。
So first one would be higher resolution textures, which includes hair, skin, and we weren't able to show any examples today, but we do want to improve the textures of the gear as well.
でさらにですね、これはシェーダーと呼ばれる、処理になってくるんですけど、質感の表現というのを向上させていきます。例えば肌、それから装備品の金属部分、あと布って、布用のシェーダーっていうのが実はあって、Q14 では入れてたんですけど、重すぎて外してるんですね。そろそろいけるだろうということで、布がもう少し滑らかに布っぽく見えるっていうシェーダーなどを今、研究トライしているところです。
And then the next item, and this is relating to various shaders, shader processing, which is improved material qualities, of course, skin, metal, and fabric. It's interesting because in the 1.0 or like the old version of Final Fantasy 14, there was a shader or like a process that was just applied to fabric so that it would look the textures would the texture quality would look like fabric, but it was too heavy of a load on processing, so we had to remove it in the relaunch. But we're testing various ways to see if we can apply something like that to make fabric a bit more, well, smoother and more fabric-like. And we're still kind of researching and trying out various methods.
そしてですね、キャラクターに対してのライティングとシャドウの強化というのもやっていきます。特にね、見栄えに直結しやすいこうセルフシャドウに関してはすごくずっと気になってたんで。
And then again, lighting and shadow, better lighting and shadow effects, especially for the player's shadows.
まあさっきもお話しましたけど、できるだけプレイヤーの皆さんの今のキャラクターに持ってるイメージっていうのが変わらないように、綺麗になったな俺のキャラって思ってもらえるようにしていきたいと思ってます。
Of course, again, our goal is to make it so that the overall appearance of player characters will be altered as little as possible. We want you guys to see the graphical updates and think, oh wow, my character's become pretty.
で注意点が2つあって、まず1つ装備品、信じられない数のアセットがあるのであれを 7.0 までに全部コンバートするのは不可能です。
So 2 points of caution. The gear, we mentioned about updating the material quality of gear, but you know, there's an incredible, unbelievable amount of gear available for all of our player characters, and considering we'd have to convert them all, we will not be able to get through converting all of the gear by the 7.0 timing.
なので 7.0 で新しく実装されている装備っていうのは全て今回のグラフィックスアップデートを経た内容で作っていきます。なのでクオリティがより高いもので全部用意するつもりです。
So any gear that is implemented from 7.0 will have gone through the process of the updated graphics. So of course those will be of the higher quality.
ただし、できる限りこうプレイヤーの皆さんがミラプリとかをしておしゃれによく使っているものに関してはちょっと優先的にできる限り対応して、またパッチ 7.x シリーズで徐々にその古い装備っていうのも新しい仕様に少しずつ対応していけるように っていうふうに思ってますので、ちょっと数年がかりで全体が上がっていくことにはなるかと思いますが、よろしくお願いします。
But we understand that there are certain glamours that people use often, so we want to look at those and try to get those done with a higher priority in terms of like which to get to. And throughout the 7.x series is when we will address the rest of the previous equipment or gear. So I'm afraid it will take at least a few years to address all of the different textures.
あと NPC です。今回ね、プレイヤーのキャラクターみんなクオリティアップするじゃん。バーンって。NPC 全員も無理だと思っていて、70までには。
The other thing are the NPCs. I know we talked about updating the player characters and the graphics on those, but I'm afraid we're not going to be able to address all of the NPCs by 7.0.
まあ申し訳ないんだが、クオリティの高くなった NPC とまだなんて順番が回ってこない NPC っていうのが出てしまうと思うんですけど、ちょっとそれも許していただけると助かります。
So I'm terribly sorry to say this, but you may start seeing NPCs that have gone through the graphical updates and those that have not gone through the updates. But please, your understanding would be appreciated.
これをね全部やれって言うと、いやもうじゃあグラフィックスアップデートやめましょう、無理です無理ですってなっちゃうんで、ちょっとちぐはぐっていうのが出ちゃうタイミングがあるとは思うんですけど。
You know what this means? You'll know which characters the devs love more. They're the ones that got the graphical update first.
ちょっと許していただけると、なのでちょっとイルベルドはまだ後でいいかみたいな。
And if I were to tell my team that, okay, we need to do everything, then people are just going to throw in the towel and be like, no, this is impossible. So I'm afraid there will be times at which not all of the NPCs will have gone through their graphical updates, and it might look a little disoriented or disjointed. But if I don't allow for that to happen, we won't be able to get to it. So again, if you could forgive us for going through that, that would be appreciated. Like, Airbird might not get his graphical update as quickly as maybe like the Sultana, but
テレジアデレジはっていうお声が結構あるんですよ。ただですね、残念なんとテレジアデレジってプレイヤーのなんだろうキャラメイクで作られてるんで、僕らが手を下さずともあいつ勝手にクオリティ上がってしまう可能性が高い。
Some people are asking, oh, but what about Telegy Adelegy? And I realize his expression is part of the parts that you can select when you're creating your character. So because we're updating the player character facial parts, Telegy Adelegy is going to have his graphical updates already. So he may be an exception to those NPCs.
まあというわけでプレイヤーベースで組まれてるものはね必然的にそうなるんですけど、まあナナモさんとかはねやった方がいいかなとは思ってるんですけど、ちょっとまだ精査まではしきれてないので、ちょっとそういう状態が出るとは思うんですけど、よろしくお願いします。
So yeah, any characters that are built based on facial parts or body parts that are available for players to utilize will probably be updated simultaneously with like the player character graphics. But there are certain key NPCs that we're also looking at, maybe the Sultana, but we have yet to sort of assess, and we will continue to sort of explore the options.
で、まあちょっと今日お見せしたのは繰り返しになりますが、テストをスタートしてまだ1ヶ月ちょっとのデータなので、さらなるですねクオリティの向上に向けて他の種族も含めてですねテストを続行していきます。いずれ装備とかもねこんな感じになるよというのもお見せできればと思ってます。
But yeah, again, what we showed you was only about a month or so of testing. So we're hoping to provide you with more updates as they come
really amazing what they did
perhaps the other
just,
races,
under a month.
perhaps we can provide you an update with gear, etc. in the not so far future.
で、そうだな。あとは 結構コメントであったんですけど、装備の干渉なんとかしてほしいって、あれは正直どうにもならないです。物理エンジンを入れて、計算でかわすしかないんですけど、それをやるとやっぱ動かなくなっちゃうと思うので、あとやっぱり装備の干渉を許可してる僕が、もういいと、これは割り切ってくれって言ってるから、今のペースでそのアセットギアが報酬が装備がリリースできてるっていうところもあるので、努力はしますが、根本的にオフラインのゲームのようにはならないので、はい、そこはすいません、ご了承ください。
And I'm also seeing comments about can you do something about like gear or equipment or like player characters like body parts interfering with the graphics of gear, equipped gear. And I'm afraid that is something that we cannot address fully. We would have to put in a physics engine in there, and that would cause for some of the characters to kind of not move properly anymore. And plus, I, as the director, have allowed for those imperfections to my team. I'm afraid we're just moving on with it, or else we won't be able to keep the pace in releasing these different gear and the different designs that is available. So I'm afraid we are unable to address it fully to match something that of a like a standalone game. Sorry.
さあでは次はですね、ちょっと BG マップに関わるところもテスト1ヶ月ちょっとのサンプル持ってきました。
We have more samples though. This time it's for various backgrounds and like map elements.
まずこれは単純にテクスチャーとかに何も手を入れずに配置できるライトの数を増やすっていうテストのサンプルです。
So this first image is a test of just simply the number of lights we can place in a certain scene without it touching any of the textures or surfaces.
配置ライト数をですね、複数増やすとこんな感じになります。
So we just added a few more lights in a particular scene, and
it looks better. It looks
what you see
better.
is
It's not that much
the right
different,
side
but it
of the
looks
image.
better.
ライトがですね、遠くに左側ね、1灯しか焚けないので、ちょっと見てほしいのは手前側にあるデスクに影がほぼ落ちてないのが、右側複数ライトによってちゃんと影が出るようになってるでしょ。
So if you look at the one on the left, we were only able to place one light source in the scene, but in the picture on the right, we were able to place multiple lights to give it a more realistic look. And as you can see, the desk is now casting a shadow.
まあ当然分かりやすく上の方にライトさらに1灯追加されてるので、まああそこまで作り込んでたのにライトが当たらないことによって全部黒で潰れちゃってたのが、まあしっかり見えてくるようになるので、これね多分プレイじっくり見ていないとというか受ける雰囲気が変わるので、これによって。
And of course, I think one of the key changes that you can see is because we were able to place a light directly on top, you're able to see some of the details that would have been kind of hidden behind a shadow.
That is true.
And so I think with allowing for more lights to be placed, it will kind of give you a better impression of some of the atmosphere in some of these locations.
でさらにですね、こちら今の現在の状態のティターニアですね。
Next, you see Titania in her current in their current state.
でこれはシャドウです。シャドウのテストをお見せします。
So this is where we tested out how shadows appear.
まあ影に使ってるテクスチャーの解像度と計算を上げていくので、これぐらいくっきり見えていくようになる。
So this is where we tested the texture as well as the calculation formula behind how we're displaying the shadow underneath Titania. And we believe that we are able to improve the quality and the resolution up to what you see on the right image.
さらにですね、これ複数ライトも置いてみてるので、もう今の14だと左の環境しか作れないんですけど、複数ライトさらにカラー変えたりしていくことで、右のようにね、かなり複雑なライティングの絵作りっていうのができていくようになります。
And as you can see, we have multiple lights again in this updated picture, and then plus we put some colored lighting. So the background is exactly the same, and it was actually quite intricately built, but by having these different sort of lighting available to shine on it, you can see the complex details that was part of the structure.
ちなみにこれ左のティタニアのストーリー的には左の雰囲気がいいなって言ってるコメントがあるんですけど、はい、実はこの状態をさらにグレードアップさせたバージョンを BG チーム作ってきたんです、サンプルとして。ただ開発者目線で見ないと分かんないからライトの色を赤とかにして複数ライトが混ざってるっていう環境を作ってくれって言って僕がわざわざデザイナーがセンスよく統一してきたものをバラしたんで、デザイナーのセンスじゃないので、これね僕のプレゼン用だと思ってください。デザイナーの名誉のために言っときます。デモ用ですね。はい。
One thing I do want to clarify, because somebody pointed out they liked the look of the original Titania, where it has that sort of mood with all the muted colors. Yoshida I want to point out that this is the developers actually brought to me an example of what improved graphics would look like with that stayed within the color palette of the original picture, but that's very much in the developer's perspective, and I wouldn't be able to tell the difference of what has improved. That's why I had requested my designer to intentionally place red lights, something that's more obvious, just to show an example. So don't worry, this is not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to like destroy the atmosphere. The designer was very mindful about keeping the tone of the story, but I wanted a more like overt example. So just wanted to clarify that.
でここでちょっとね特に注目してほしいのが画面右の奥、上の方に見えてるステンドグラスのあたりをちょっと見ていただきたいんですけど。
And one part that I do want to point out, if you look at the upper part of the image, where the stained glass is.
これ左と右マップのポリゴンは何も変わらないんですね。テクスチャー解像度も変わってないです。
So just reiterating that we have not changed any of the polygons that are in the map layout. We did not improve any of the textures here.
なのでライトを変える複数置けるようになるだけで、実は BG アーティストたちがこだわって作っていた箇所っていうのがより明確にちゃんと見えるようになるんですよ。左は全部影で潰れてるんですけど、もともとちゃんと凹凸あるんですね。
And so this is what I'm trying to show with this image is that by being able to place multiple lights in a scene, we are able to showcase the details that our background artists have put into the structure. So above these stained glass, you might see these sort of like tiered sort of molding on top. And the picture on the left, it makes it unnoticeable because it's kind of drowned in the shadows. So by being able to place multiple lights, we're able to accentuate those details that our background team has put into the structure.
ちなみにバックグラウンドアーティストたちはライトの追加をやっていこうって言ったらめっちゃ喜んでました。
So when we were talking about adding multiple lights, the background team definitely had a very strong reaction to that.
よかった。
さあで次はですね、こちらは金属表現をその質感を上げますというサンプルになります。
So next sample we want to show you is how we depict like the texture of the metal.
こちらもですねデザイナーの趣味というよりはですね悪趣味なぐらい変えてくれって言ってるのでそれをご承知おきください。
And of course, this again is supposed to be an example, and so I asked my designer to make it very gaudy at this point. So please understand, it is not necessarily the designer's choice.
That is very golden.
もともとやりたかったけどシェーダーがなくてできなかったので、まあこれぐらいゴールドをちゃんとやっていきますよと。
That is so shiny.
So up until now, we didn't have the proper shaders to apply, but we would love to improve the look of metallic surfaces.
Golden.
For example, gold here.
すごいですよね
コメントで吉田の家じゃんって書いてあるんだけど、俺んちこんなんだったらもう仕事してないわ。
That is so much
People are
gold.
saying, "Oh, is this Yoshida's house?" I was like, "No, if I were that rich, I wouldn't be working."
でもこれ怖いもんで、今まで我々は左を金だと信じてまいりましたけど、なんかもうブラスにしか見えないですよね。Yeah, actually, we trusted left side screen is gold up until now, but now it only see brass, not gold, no more.
まあこういう形で金属の質感強化っていうのもやっていきます。まあこれはねとてもわかりやすい。
The gold texture is definitely starts to look like gold.
Thank you for that. But yeah, again, we're trying to make improvements to the material quality, so the look of metallic surfaces as well.
さらにですね、続いてはマップに使えるメモリっていうのも、上限を上げてあげようと思っているので、それによってですね、より多くのオブジェクトが配置できるようになっていきます。
And next was to look at the memory resources allocated to rendering a particular area on a map. And I'm looking to raise that sort of cap so that we can place more objects in a particular field.
まあこれ左側が現在よくちょっとマトシャと出会ったりするところですけど、こんな感じになってます。これ現在ですね。
So the left side, you may remember your first encounter with Matsuya.
でそれがですね、今回このぐらいまではいけるだろうと。
And with testing, we are seeing that we could possibly place more objects like these.
Wow, that looks
左と比べてですね、やっぱりまず注目点としてはその1枚のループで作られてたその階段状になってる部分っていうのが、それぞれ素材違いをしかもこう組み合わせでずらして配置したりすることによってこう使い込まれた感とかより出せていける。この辺りはね実はすごく大きいと思います。
Stonework on the
and so in the
stairs.
left, you may
it's a
notice
lot more
that it's just a
irregular, more
repeat
fitting for
layered
a fish market.
like a repeat layered on top of each other. But in the updated graphics, you can see that we are able to place objects not exactly like on top of each other, but like you can shift it by a little bit. It'll allow for a more realistic depiction of the area has been in use. So this is actually quite it helps with like the immersion.
であとはその床ですね。実は床の上にもう一枚テクスチャーを重ねてブレンドさせることでですね、床のこうひび割れだったり、細かい今だとねメモリがないので巨大な床を1枚貼ってどうにかところなんですけど、そこをさらにこうスカン上げていけるようになる。
And then the floor or the ground, with the graphical update, would be able to add another layer on top to give it more texture and kind of blend it in. So like cracks in the ground. Previously, we wouldn't have enough memory, so we would just have to paste one giant floor and deal with it. But with the graphical updates, I think we'll be able to improve on the texture quality as well.
そしてですね、続いてからちょっと BG でお知らせする最後になるんですが
Next is, I believe, the last set of samples that I've seen for the background elements.
こちらです。我々開発チーム最大の敵、自動草って呼んでるやつ。
Oh.
So this is one of our pet peeves, arch nemesis, I should say. These are like these automatically generated grass.
これがですね、カットシーンのチェックをやってるとですね、割り込んでくるんですよ。自動で生やされるんで。多分カットシーン作ったスタッフの時には生えてなかったんでしょうけど、僕がチェックする時は生えててですね、このジャギジャギがすごい入ってくるんですよ。
And this is so, it takes away from cutscenes when it barges in. I'm sure when the cutscene team is creating the composition, they don't see the grass because this is just automatically generated after the fact. But sometimes it's like so close up and it's so pixelated, and that pixelation it bothered me very much.
今回もね実はちょっと裏話ですけど、
はい、
まあエルピスでヘルメスにね、メーティオンにせがまれてエルピスの花をこう見せるシーン、夜空でねあるじゃない。でヘルメスがこう仮面を外す、あそこがですね何度チェックしてても自動草が入ってくるんですよ。で頭にきたんでもう BG 班に頼んでこの辺もう草生やさない設定にしてくれって。
あ、なるほど、除草剤を撒いてしまったんですね。
So one behind the scenes comment I wanted to make when I was looking at the cutscene in Elpis, sorry spoilers, but Hermes, when he's talking to Meteon about, oh, I want to show you the flowers in Elpis, and he removes his mask, the grass automatically generates, and it gets in the way. So I got so mad. I told the background team, like, can you make it so that you don't have grass being generated in this part of the ground?
でそれがですね、今まだテスト中ですがこんな感じになります。
But that will be updated hopefully. Again, we're still testing, but this is a sample image of what it could look like.
でまあ種類もね複数持てるようになるので、これね草原から上は何も手入れてないんですよ。向こうに見える木とか全く今のままなんですけど、まあ、こんなに変わるですよね。
So, and plus we are able to generate a variation of different grass or plants. And so while we haven't added or modified anything in the background, like the trees and the field in the background have not been modified, the look of it is different because of how we can process these automated grass.
これはですね自動草そのものを入れ替えるので、申請から行月まで全てのマップで自動で生えてる草がきれいになります。
And for this update, we will be replacing the system that generates these grass or plant life. And so this should be applied throughout all of the areas from A Realm Reborn throughout Endwalker.
さあではバックグラウンド実はねまだあるんですけど、ちょっとどんな表現バックグラウンドを上げていくかというのをお知らせしておきます。
We've done various other testings in terms of background elements, but allow me to summarize again.
まず先ほど、サンプルでも見ていただきましたライト配置数の追加質感落とす表現ね雰囲気の強化っていうのがこれによって、行われます。
So again, we are going to be doing additional lighting points, so improved visual quality, depth, and immersion.
そしてですね影の高解像度化影のテクスチャーを高解像度にすることでですねちらつかなくなったりですね影がよりメリハリが効くようになります。
And then higher resolution shadows. And so we'd be improving the texture of the shadow and how it's depicted so that it will allow for like flickering, decreased flickering.
ちょっと嘆きの海のマップを思い出していただきたいんですけど、あそこ実は雰囲気を宇宙空間にするために、ライトの距離をすごい遠くして、全体の暗さをこう締めるようなことをやってるんですけど、結果そうすると影がものすごく長く表示されるんだけど、テクスチャー解像度が低いがゆえにすごいじらついたりボケたりする箇所が結構多いんですよ。ただ雰囲気を優先したんで我慢してたんですけど、そういうところもですねより綺麗にちらつかずに影が出てくるようになると思います。
So if you would recall Mare Lamentorium and how we were trying to depict or make it seem like you're in outer space and make sure that the lighting had been placed in a very distant location so that we emphasize that sort of darkness that surrounds you. because of that, whenever you're on the moon, your shadow gets to be very long, but because the shadow textures were not optimal, you would see frequent areas that would cause the shadows to flicker, or it could get blurry. So with the graphical update, we're hoping to improve so that those shadows would come out a lot crisper.
そして質感表現の向上です。これもシェーダーでですね、金属とか布とか、まあそれ以外のちょっとシェーダーも今検討してます。
And then, of course, improve textures, which includes metals, fabrics, and we're also trying to consider what other elements can we improve.
そして最後にご覧いただいた自動配置植物の強化、高解像度にしたりですね、あと植生をね、種類を増やしたりしていきます。
Lastly, more and better auto-generated greenery, which is increased resolution, variety, and etc.
で、画面全体にフィルター効果として非常に重要なアンビエントオクルージョンっていう機能だったり、フォグ、いわゆる霧をこう重ねるみたいな、それをフォグって呼ぶんですけど、これらに関しては今テストをしてるんですけど、まだちょっとサンプルをお見せできない状態です。
And we're also considering other effects or filters that would apply to the overall screen, including ambient occlusion and fog effects. Now, those are still being tested, but we couldn't produce results that we can present at this time.
めちゃくちゃ雰囲気出るし、めちゃくちゃクオリティ上がるんですけど、画面全体にパフォーマンスの影響を与えるものなので、慎重にテストをして、しっかりこれだったら大丈夫だろう、その皆さんが極端に PC を買い替えたりとかしなくても、あとオプションでね、ちょっと切ることで軽くできるとかっていうのをちゃんと用意した上で、ここまでやれますよっていうのをちゃんとお見せできる。まだちょっと1ヶ月じゃそこまではいけないので、ただこれらも強化はしていきますので、また続報をね、お待ちいただければと思います。
And we totally understand that it will give it a different sense of atmosphere, or it would really improve the mood if we had those kinds of textures applied or those filters applied. But it does affect the overall performance of the game. So we will need to test it very carefully for sure. So we want to explore our options, but we also want to make sure that we are at a state where we're comfortable and not requiring for so much resources that players would have to like update their PC to an extreme, or be able to provide an option to shut it off if you want to optimize your performance. So I'm afraid we're not able to show you anything as of like a month or so of testing, but we're hoping to bring you updates further down the line. So yeah, if you could please stay tuned for that.
さて、では、グラフィックス第1次グラフィックスアップデートの、今日お伝えできる範囲としては、ここまでとさせていただきます。
Okay, so in terms of the graphical updates and the preparations that we're making for it, I think is all that I have for today's presentation.
Okay.
さあでは続いて、3つ目なんですが、引き続き多くのアップデートこれまでと変わらずですね、適切なスケジュールでお届けしていきますよというお話です。
So yeah, we will continue to provide regular updates on an appropriate schedule.
せっかくの機会ということでですね、ちょっと 6.1 から 6.5 まで現状決まっているものでお知らせできそうなものをお知らせしておこうと思います。
So I would like to share information that we know that we're going to have from 6.1 through 6.5.
Ooh, yes,
まずパッチ 6.1 なんですけど、こちらねリリースタイミングが読み切れないと思うんですけど、皆さん4月には出します。はい。
So 6.1 series. I understand that it's still kind of hard to see when it's coming, but we are looking at April at this time.
April, okay,
当然
that's
です
not
が、
too far
クエ
away.
ストのアップデートっていうのは 6.1 から 6.5 まで
Yes,
新しい
yes.
冒険をお届けしていこうと思ってます。
Of course, part of those updates will include the updates to the main scenario. We will have a new story
Yes, finally, more
where the age
Hildebrand
patch
quest. More
installment.
Hildebrand.
そして
Thank
ですね
God.
全世界から帰ってこいと言われていた、事件や紳士ねついに帰還でございますヒルディブランドの行月編
Oh my
が、
God, we
始ま
didn't
りま
have
す
Hildebrand for an entire expansion in
Of course, we've
Shadowbringers.
heard many
That was
people
so
ask for him to come back.
painful.
This gentleman extraordinaire, Mr. Hildebrand, will be making his return.
新しいサブクエストシリーズとしてですねタタルの、大繁盛商店というのが、連続として始まります。
And then,
And
of
the
course,
Tataru
a new
side
series
quest.
of side
I
quests
like that.
named Tataru's
Tataru's
Grand
pretty cool.
Endeavor.
ちなみにヒルディブランドが最後に目撃されたのはパッチ 5.3 で実装された漆黒決戦ノルブラントでエリディブスによって召喚された中に
いましたね
確率でたまに出てくるんでねあいつID の中に、あそこですね最後に目撃されてるのは。
I believe the last last time Hildebrand was seen was in patch 5.3, the Hero's Gauntlet. And this is a random occurrence, so you may or may not have seen him. But when you are doing your Warrior of Light battle, he is one of the people that is summoned.
さあどんな冒険とかね珍道中になるのかぜひ楽しみにお待ちください。
But yeah, we hope you enjoy whatever odd adventures that he gets into.
まあどんどんいきます。パッチ 6.1 まだまだあってですね、アライアンスレイドミソロジー・オブ・エオルゼア12神にまつわる物語ですねスタートします。
Ooh, Alliance Raid, Myth of the
Continuing
Realm.
with patch 6.1
That's the
updates,
stuff I'm
we will
talking
have
about.
our Alliance Raid, Myths of the Realm, Part 1 implemented. This is going to delve into or touch upon the mythos of the 12 gods.
そして新 PVP のクリスタルコンフリクトというのが、スタートして蛮族クエストアルカソーダラ続編があって、ゼツは本当お待たせしました、レイド大好き勢、本当お待たせしたんですが最新ゼツリリースします。
I'm interested in the Beast
And
Tribe.
so next is a new PvP, the Crystalline Conflict. We will have a new
They're the
Beast Tribe
elephant
quest,
people.
or like a new tribal quest, Arkasodara tribe quest in their dailies, and then a new ultimate content. Thank you so much for your patience. Our new ultimate duty will be implemented as of 6.1.
ゲームはねアルテマになりますがもうバランスチェックも終わっていて結構むずいですよ。
I never do ultimate. They're up there.
And of course, we will finally be reopening the Unreal battles. Ultima's Bane will be what's coming for the next battle. We are currently testing this out, but it's quite challenging.
アルテマウェポンってもともと結構初期に時間のない中で作られていて、IL が結構みんな上がってるんで、いろいろギミック無視できたりとか、被弾してもそんなになんですけどレベル90でバランス取り直してきっちりアイテムレベル確定させたらねやっぱ面白いしやりごたえあるなこれって感じでした。
Of course, when we first designed the Ultima weapon fight, it was done in a rush, and then by now I think people have raised their item level, so even if you take damage it's not as bad. But with the Unreal battles we have adjusted the boss fight so that it matches that of a level 90 player, so and we've kind of finalized the item level. So testing it out, I enjoyed it. It was a very interesting battle and it's very challenging for sure.
でも今ちょっとコメントであったんだけど、蛮族クエストっていう蛮族っていう呼び方やめたいなっていうコメントがあって、確かにそうだね、ちょっと考え直そう、メモっといてもらっていいかしら。はい、表現変えていきましょう。
There was a comment about the Beast Tribe quest, and it seems to not be very favorable to call it that. I know we're trying to shift it to say tribe quests, or like we're just calling it by the tribal name in the English, but we are going to try to figure out a better way to phrase it.
Beast Tribe.
そして絶なんですよ。
Yeah, we're not supposed to call them Beast Tribes anymore.
多分一番
We're
難しい
more
と思うん
progressive now.
で、やる方は覚悟をしておいてください。
And I want to backtrack a little bit to the ultimate duty, the new ultimate duty. And we're balancing right now and making adjustments, but it's quite difficult. So if you're up for a challenge, that's fantastic. But yeah, it's going to take some, it's going to, again, be challenging.
実は 6.11 かな。
ほうほう
Oh, I'm sorry. Ultimate would be not 6.1, but 6.11. So it might, it's probably not at the same time as the major patch.
まあメインシナリオをやったり、
はい
ハウジングの抽選に応募したりとかすると思うので、2週間空けて出す予定かな。はい。
We are hoping that players would enjoy the main scenario first, and then 6.1 is also when we open up the Ishgard housing. So I'm sure people will want to sign up for like housing plots. So we're going to wait 2 weeks after the launch of the major patch, and then release the ultimate duty.
まだまだあってですね、6.1、まあ、さっきお伝えしたメインクエスト ID のフェイス対応 2.0 半やって、それ以外の
Oh, right.
ID のちょ
Trust
っとグラフィックスの
system.
調整と
Well,
か
we
いろいろや
already
って
did
ます。
that. Calling card UI.
So continuing on with the 6.1 series
Hairstyles for
updates,
Frostguard.
so
I don't play
the
Frostguard.
main quest, sorry,
Imperium,
the trust
Ishgard
system for
housing.
Realm
I
Reborn
never
patch
intend.
2.0 main
It's not that I never
scenario
intend to buy a
dungeons.
house. It's just I never see
そして
myself.
新しいリワードシステ
be
ム
lucky
として
enough to
ですね
have
キャラ
one.
クターカードっていうのの、システム実装が、ドーンと始まり
And
ます。
custom deliveries is
And then a new
Amelions,
calling
which
card
is
style UI.
Alphino
So this
and
is going to be a new
Alizé's
reward
mother.
type system that we plan to start
Amelions
implementing.
Lovier.
まあこの辺の詳しい内容はね、3月4日からのまたパッチ 6.1 特集パート1、パート2の方でお伝えしていきます。そしてお待たせしたロスガルの、新髪型対応がスタートとなります。
So for this calling card style UI, this is something that we'll cover in our next two live letters. There's one definitely planned on March the 4th, and we'll do like a 6.1 feature, part 1 and part 2. So we'll delve into details at that time. So next item would be new hairstyles for Hrothgar. Thank you so much for your patience on this.
そしてハウジング、イシェガールドハウジングが開き、お得意様取引はなんとアルフィノ・アリゼのお母様であるアメリアンス編となります。
The next two items is the opening of Imperium or Ishgard housing, and then custom deliveries. You get to meet with Alphino and Alizé's mom, Amelians.
新 PVP はいつですか、まあ、またちょっと PLL で詳しく言いますけど、6.15 を予定してます。はい。
We had a question about when is the new PvP going to go live. Again, we'll cover this in the upcoming other PLLs, but we are looking at 6.15 timing for that.
まあそれ以外にもですね、透滅戦など多数のものが、まあ透滅戦名前言えないですけど、ありますんで、ぜひご期待ください。ここまでがまあ 6.1 のざっくり概要です。はい。
And of course, new trials, we can't say what, but other assorted updates are planned for the 6.1 series.
そして続いて 6.2 ですが、こんな感じになってて、まあ一番の注目はやっぱりお知らせしていた、無人島開拓が 6.2 からスタートになります。
So next up is the 6.2 series. This is one of the large, like the anticipated content, I believe, is the Island Sanctuary. That's when we're going to start opening this up.
昨日全体を一通りチェックしましたけど、めちゃくちゃでかいんで規模。だいぶね、組み上がってるんで、もう。
I had the opportunity to check the overall sort of content yesterday, and it's quite large scale. But I think it's coming along nicely.
またちょっと今日は時間がないのであれですけど、詳しく説明する機会は取ろうと思いますが、基本的には外の世界と全く異なるそこだけで完結できる遊びになってますし、まあゆっくり本当にゆるくやれるので楽しみに待っていただけると嬉しいです。
So I'm afraid we don't have the time to cover it today, but we will take the time at another opportunity so that we can explain the details of this. But it is going to be a different sort of area that you can enjoy, and it's a very self-contained sort of content that you can enjoy.
でまあ2.x 残り新生オルゼアの 2.x シリーズのメインクエスト ID を全部対応し、想定編にも突入します。あとは武器強化コンテンツの新しいシリーズをスタートしますとかですね。
So going back to the earlier bullet points, we will be applying the trust system for the 2.x main scenario dungeons, maybe partially into Heaven's Word. It says here.
ああそうだ、もうね多すぎて入れてないんですけど、ミラプリの拡張もね 6.1 から第1弾始まるんで言っときます。そういうの。
Oh, we also want to mention we will be expanding on glamours.
Yes,
glamour. ミラプリのごめんなさい、ミラプリはグラマープリズムの方で。
Thank
ね、
How many more glamours can we
第1
fit?
弾プレート増やすをやっていく、まず第1弾。
So glamour related updates. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure how to phrase it, so I squeezed it out of Yoshida-san. We will be addressing and expanding upon glamour plates as part of the first glamour related updates in 6.1 series.
まあちょっと全部書ききれないけど、いつもの討伐透滅戦のノーマルと極があるとかいうのは、まあいつも通りやっていくので、まあその辺は書かれてなくてもあると思ってもらえると助かります。
And of course, we will have whatever content that you can expect in a patch update, so like new trials, etc. It's not written here because we couldn't fit it all in the slides, but yes.
収納数増やすトライもしてるから、ごっそりどっかのタイミングで増やします。
And we're also looking at like how to expand upon like the number of sets stored. So we're hoping to find an opportunity to do that update,
Yes,
like
please.
like not an overhaul, but like an update on that as well.
そしてですね、さりげなく書かれてる新しいこの 6.2 から新しいバトルコンテンツ、タイプが全くこれまでと違うコンテンツを今開発中です。
And then the fourth bullet point, it's just kind of snuck in there as part of like the updates, but it's a new thing that we're trying to do. It's a dungeon with variable difficulty.
これ難易度可変ダンジョンって今開発コードネームなんですけど、1人から4人でチャレンジできて、1人で行く、2人で行く、3人で行く、4人で行くっていうので、自動的にそれに合わせて難易度がコントロールされるっていうチャレンジ型のコンテンツになります。
And so the code name that we're using here is like Criterion Dungeons, but so you can attempt this with 1 to 4 people, and what makes it variable is that if you go in, depending on the number of people you go in with, so 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, the difficulty sort of varies. It will automatically scale, so it's like a content where players can sort of challenge themselves.
Oh, so
まあこちらも
so you can
組み
do
上
it
がっては来てるんですけど、
with just
ま
solo.
だ
No,
調
just
整いろいろ
solo.
チェックやってた
I
りする
play
ので、
warrior
まあ
to
6.2 に
begin
近
with.
づいてきたらしっかり特集していきたいと思います。
It is coming along nicely, but and we're still performing checks on the content. So please stay tuned for new information as they become available when we can talk about 6.2.
そして 6.3 になるとですね、メインクエストの ID フェイス対応が争点編をここで完了させる予定です。
And then moving into 6.3, so we continued to add more trust NPCs. We should be able to address the remaining main scenario instanced dungeons in Heaven's Word.
でかいのはですね、世界中からですね、ディープダンジョンシリーズの新しいのがやりたいという、お声をたくさん頂戴していたので、今企画をやっている最中です。6.3 で、ディープダンジョンシリーズの第3弾実装予定です。
And then players from around the world had asked about when do we get a new deep dungeon, and so we are in the planning phases at this time. We're hoping to launch the third in the series of deep dungeons at 6.3 series timing.
そしてですね、すでに、開発スタートして進んでるんですが、Z シリーズの第5弾を、6003でリリース予定です。
And then we are already starting to make plans for this, but we do intend on adding one more ultimate duty. So this will be the 5th one in the series.
そしてですね、6.2 でリリースされた、無人島開拓のアップデートももちろん行っていきます。
And then, of course, because we will be opening up the Island Sanctuary as of 6.2, at 6.3 series timing, we will continue to update it.
Please tell me it's
で、まあ、4と5はちょっとパッチ 6.4 と5はまとめてのご紹介になっちゃいますが、この4と5でグレン編のメインクエスト ID のフェイスタイルを全部終わらせて、まあ、これで、ストーリー上に登場する ID は、全部対応が終わる予定です。
more criterion dungeons.
And then next page covers both 6.4 and 6.5 series. But by this time, we aim to complete the trust system implementation into all of the Stormblood main scenario dungeon series. And so that should get through all of Stormblood.
で難易度可変ダンジョンと呼んでる新しいバトルコンテンツシリーズの第2弾とか第3弾も入れていきますし、無人島開拓の開拓エリアを追加したりっていう予定ももう当然ね我々長期計画で進んでいるので予定されてます。
And then, of course, our Criterion dungeons will see an update. We should have numbers 2 and 3 implemented. And then for Island Sanctuary, at this time, we want to expand upon the area. So we'll have an additional area.
でですね、例えば青魔同士のレベルキャップをどのタイミングにする、解放をどのタイミングにするのとか、そういう状況を見ながら調整しているものに関してはどうしてもまだ言えないので、それらもちゃんとどっかのタイミングでやっていきますんで、またそれぞれでですねパッチの特集をお待ちいただければありがたいなと。やらないとかいうわけじゃないんで、ここに書かれてないものはね、まだ詰め切れてないものはちょっと言えないのでさすがにまあこの辺りはもう全部確定しているのでお知らせしております。
I'm sure some of you might be wondering about, okay, when is the next time the Blue Mage is going to have their level cap increased?
Yes,
and
please. I need to get rid of all that.
Some of these items we need to monitor the situation, and so I'm afraid we aren't able to determine exactly when this is going to happen. But we do intend on doing it. We will share more information when we are going to do like a patch specific like updates live stream. Please note that even if it's not written in the document, it doesn't mean that we're not going to do it. So yeah, there might be information that we're still in the planning phases and we weren't able to solidify at this time. So we will continue to look at the various existing content and provide updates when we can.
Oh.
まあなんかパッチ情報を出すとみんな細かいところあれはどうこれはどうってやっぱりなっちゃうね。まあ皆さんが思ってることは基本的にやってるんで大丈夫ですよ。
I see that people in the comments are talking about various granular areas of patch updates, and I think it's safe to say that things that we know people are expecting in a regular update will more than likely be included. So I want to make sure that yeah, don't be worried.
まあアルカスソーダラの次のはどうなるの、種族ってどうなるのとかもう全部決まってます。ちゃんと毎パッチやっていくので、まああれかなこれかなって思いながら待っていただけると嬉しいです。
And the tribal quest beyond Arkasodara is I'm sure a mystery, but we have a plan. We do have like which group to focus in on, and we do want to have content available per each of the patch. So it would be great if you could wait or not wait, but like speculate, kind of imagine which tribe will we be focusing in on.
あとゴールドソーサーも予定してるんですけど、4になるか5になるかまだ決まってないんでちょっと待ってください。
And we do intend on making Gold Saucer updates, but we still haven't determined if it's going to be 6.4 or 6.5. So that's why we're not mentioning it at this time.
さあというわけで、変わらずですね、もりもりでやっていきますよというお知らせでした。
But yeah, just wanted to go through all of these roadmaps just so that we know that we continue, or we plan to continue providing very hefty updates.
ただですね、一個皆さんにこれを踏まえてですね、ちょっとお知らせをさせてください。
Very hefty.
But with that being said, allow me to make one announcement.
メジャーパッチのサイクルについてです。
Oh, major patch cycles.
And this is
Let's hear
regarding
it.
the major patch cycle.
これまでですね、申請スタートからですね、ずっとできるだけこの 3.5 ヶ月に1メジャーパッチ配信っていうのを、目標に掲げてやってきました。
So of course, since the relaunch as A Realm Reborn,
Every 1.5
we've tried to keep this pace of one major patch update per every 3.5 months.
でこれをですね、本当申し訳ないんですが、2週間プラスしてですね、4ヶ月にさせてください。
Okay.
I mean, I'm
was it
terribly
two
sorry to
two more week?
ask you of
Two
this,
extra
but
weeks?
we need to extend it by 2 weeks, and so we want to change it so that it's one major patch every 4 months.
でこの2週間って何かっていうとですね、我々開発内では実装期間っていうのと調整期間っていうので大きく2つあるんですけど、この実装期間にプラスあと1週間、それから調整期間にプラスあと1週間の時間をいただいて、マイメジャーパッチを 3.5 ヶ月でなんとかやってきたのをちょっと4ヶ月、プラス2週させていただけると助かります。
So of course we have periods of our development cycle where it's development and then implementation, and various adjustments, fine-tuning that we do. So those 2 weeks that we ask
maybe
of
3
you for your
weeks. Not bad at
patience
all.
is
Not bad
1
at
week
all.
for additional implementation, and then 1 week or 1 week additional for fine-tuning. So that makes it that 3.5 months now turns into 4 months.
でですね、夏季休暇期間とか、我々やっぱりサマーバケーションスタッフに渡したりですね、年末年始やっぱり家族とねゆっくり過ごしてほしいっていうのがあるので、夏季休暇期間とか年末年始の場合には、これにプラス1週間ねさせていただくことがあるかなと思います。
And in addition to that, we do have breaks, like summer vacation or summer holidays, New Year's holidays. I'm sure people have family that they would visit over the holidays, and so for those holiday seasons, we might see an additional like 1 week's not delay, but like 1 week's time added as well.
やっぱりここまでその前半の10年間っていうところでもお伝えしましたけど、相当みんなの開発チーム運営チームのモチベーションというところに頼ってやってきたところがあるなと思っていて、それは僕自身のこう稼働の高さも含めてなんですけど、休みたいというよりはやっぱり適切にみんな健康で健やかに開発に取り組むことでよりクオリティも上がっていくだろう。でも事実足りてない無理をしてきたっていうところもあるので、ちょっとそれが理由になってます。
As I explained in the first half, when we were looking back at our first 10 years, we really depended on the motivation of each of the developers that are on the team, and me included. I was moving around and very hands-on with my team, but looking at our schedule and how we work, I do want my team to be healthy and be able to sort of maintain a good level of quality because they are taking the necessary breaks. And to be honest, there were areas where we might not have performed as well as we should have because some of us may have been pushing too hard. So that's the reasoning behind why we want additional time.
I think it's a good idea.
でまあ非常にね皆さん優しいコメントいただけてるん
we
で、
can always
とても嬉しい。
play something
特に
else
スタッ
while
フ
waiting for
の
the
健康とかね
patches.
気遣ってい
It's
ただ
not
けてる
like
んでとても
Final
嬉しいんですけ
Fantasy is the
ど、
only
まあ
game
これまで
that I play.
2.0 からねなんとか
So I think it's a good
3.5
idea.
ヶ月でこうやってきたそのこの実装10何週調整何週みたいなのでまあやってきたんですけど、ちょっとね比較を持ってきました。
And thank you so much for the kind comments regarding our staff and making sure that you're showing your concern to our staff members. It really warms my heart, and I'll make sure to relay that. But considering what we've been doing in terms of providing an update every 3.5 months since 2.0, and we work with a schedule of like such and such weeks for implementation and whatnot. So we put together this comparison chart for you to take a look.
まあこれまで、
Let's see.
企画、開発、調整、デバッグっていうのを、まあ、3.5 ヶ月でやってきてたんですけど。
Ooh.
Of course, our development largely is broken down to planning, development, adjustments, and debug.
4 hours, 30 minutes of
And
cutscenes.
This is some of the numbers that we've pulled up.
まあ、パッチ 3.3 の時が左の列、5.3 の時が右の列です
So the column on the left
That's
is
a lot of words.
patch
That is a lot
3.3
of words.
series timing. And then the column on the right is patch 5.3
And
series.
almost 3 times as
まあ
much
コンテン
voice
ツ
acting.
がねそこまで極端にってわけじゃないんですけど、やっぱジョブ数がまずね11だったのが18になってたり、ボス数が作ってるボス数がもう17から23って増えてるんですね。これ当然調整コストめちゃくちゃ増えてるんで。
増えましたな。
So, I mean, the number of content, like types of content, may not have varied over the years. But if you look at, say, like the number of jobs, from patch 3.3,
Man, I'm
11
starting to fall
jobs, we've
asleep.
now jumped up to 18 as of 5.3, which means a lot of different balance adjustments for those. Number of bosses have gone from 17 to 23.
もちろんね開発スタッフっていうのも皆さんからいただいた月額課金で、まあ、どんどん採用してどんどん増やしていってチーム規模も当然上がってるんですけど、
4 hours and
じゃあ
30
人が
minutes.
増えればそんなに簡単に僕ら工場製品作ってるわけじゃないので量産が上がるかっていうとやっぱりそうではない。トレーニングも必要、経験も必要。やっぱりそんなスーパーエースたちが中川とか須藤とかがバンバン育っていくわけじゃないので
Of course, with our development team, thanks to the support via monthly submissions or subscriptions from everybody, we are able to strengthen our team. We were able to hire additional staff. And so our team has definitely grown, but I mean, we're not in a factory manufacturing, we're not an assembly line. So we require training. We require for our staff to gain experience. Not everybody is a super ace player like Nakagawa or Sudo.
例えばこの開発チーム運営チーム三角形だとした場合に、この三角のスケールはめっちゃ大きくできるんですよ。
はいはいはい。
だけど結局上の方に行くと、どこまで行っても最後は頂点はディレクターとかプロデューサーってなってくるとここがやっぱそんな簡単には増えないんで、まあ、何でもかんでもたくさん調整もチェックもせずに出すってわけにもいかないから、まあ、吉田を別に分身させろとかその培養して増やせばって考えもなきにしもあらずだけど、ちょっとまだテクノロジーがそこまで追いついてないんで。
So if you would imagine our sort of team, I guess, our staff, or how we're organized as like a giant triangle. And of course, we can always scale the triangle to be larger, but I mean, it's still a triangle, so the tip is very small. And when you get to like the director and producer level, I mean, we train fantastic people, but like it doesn't grow in numbers as much as like when you scale the lower part of it. And there still requires a lot of adjustments that need to be applied on the things that we do create. and of course, it would be awesome if we can create like multiples of Yoshida. Maybe if we can clone him.
Let's
or,
clone
like...
Yoshida. That's a
But
mission
still,
for
it is
what's
quite a
his face,
challenge.
Elon
吉
Musk.
田にハイデリンキックして分割しようって言われてるけどそれ薄くなってんじゃん一吉田
一気に14個に。
Somebody's saying, perform the Heidelin kick on Yoshida and sunder him, then we'll have 14 of him. But then, wait, no, but he's sundered, so he's like thinner. Like, you have a diluted version of him.
いやいやまあでもね例えばそのカットシーンの数字なんてね2時間25分トータルだった自動送りしていくと、まあ、パチコテだと4時間30分になってるんですけど、まあ、当然ですけどそのいただいた利益で人も増やし、いろんな会社さんにお願いして腕のいい人たちにたくさんカットシーンやっぱ作ってもらってるんですけどどうしてもねディレクションする側っていうのの人数は限られてくるのでそれでももう倍増近い感じですし。
And if we look at the cutscenes, we went from 2 hours 25 minutes to 4 hours and 30 minutes. And this is like if you
That's what I commented on.
let the dialogue autoplay. But I mean, we have brought on many talented people onto our teams, but we still require somebody to look at the product that they create. And there needs to be a director that makes sure that we're aligned.
You spend the whole entire day at work just watching the cutscenes from beginning to end. Sometimes you have to repeat them. Wow.
Comments still going on about Sunder
myself.
Yoshida. Like, well, but what if he's like that's like a low quality Yoshida? It's just a man.
まあというわけでですねこれからもちょっと今日お伝えした内容 7.0 に向かっていろいろやっていきます。パッチの物量というのも頑張ってまた作っていきますしクオリティとか調整というところも妥協なくねまた進めていきたいとは思うんですが、まあその分ですねちょっとこれまでのパッチサイクル3.5 ヶ月にプラス2週させていただいて4ヶ月っていうサイクルでですね、ここから先まだまだ楽しみお届けしていこうと思ってます。
But yeah, we are making various plans leading up to 7.0, and we still want to continue bringing you the different patch updates. And so with the different elements that we implement, as well as the balancing that we do, the fine-tuning, we don't want to compromise any of that. That's why we do want to continue producing the patches to the quality that we hold ourselves up to. So we do want to ask for that initial 2 weeks so that we will have the 4-month patch cycle. But we will continue to bring you regular updates.
まあ本当にあと10年やっていけばとてつもなく長い旅になると思ってます。皆さんとね一緒に今度は20年歩んでいこうってことになるかと思います。
Let's make it, let's make it
And
20
we
years.
strive for another 10 years. This is our goal. And I'm hoping that we will get to a point where we will be celebrating or like we will be looking back at our journey in our 20th anniversary.
まだまだやりたいことねチャレンジしてみたいことあります。驚いてもらえることやっていこうと思いますのでぜひこの先もですね一緒にまたボティン作っていただけると嬉しいです。はい。
We do want to do more, take on more and more challenges, bring you more surprises. So I want to continue building this together with you all. So
after,
it would be great
this,
if you could continue to keep with us.
Q&A. I'm probably not going to stay
はい
up
では前半
for the Q&A. I'm probably going to go to
はい
bed.
ありがとうございます。Thank you very much. So this is all about the first half of today's letter live.
Okay.
今日の前
First
半
half.
プロデュースされたライブの
Oh,
前半戦はここまでと。
That was so much good
どう
information.
ぞ。
DC トラベルはいつが結構多くて今のところ予定 6.18 かな
Are you talking
で予
about
定してます
data center?
Sorry, one more thing. We did see a lot of comments about, so when is data center travel going to be implemented? We are currently looking at 6.18 timing for that.
6.18.
はい、
Okay,
ありがとうござい
got
ます
it.
Thank you very much.
Sounds good.
ではこの後休憩に入るんですが、ですね、今日は後半戦は、通訳は別の方にお願いすることになっておりますので、あいみさんがここまでとなります。So before going to break, because we have another person for translation for the Q&A part. So that's it for あいみさん today. So あいみさん、皆さんに一言ご挨拶お願いします。
はい、長い間お付き合いいただきありがとうございました。Thank you guys so much for your patience as we navigate through all of this. But yeah, I will see you guys some other at another opportunity.
ありがとうございます。Thank you very much, あいみさん。
まあ僕がね安心してこうゲームシステムの話っていうのを全世界の皆さんにこういつもの調子でお届けできるのは、本当にあいみさんの高い翻訳スキル、特にね僕の性格を把握した上でのやっぱり、トランスレーションがねもう長くなりますのでね、僕らもコンビを組ませてもらって、
ね、
なんで本当に助かってます。いつもありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。ここどうやって訳しましょう。
僕が言えばいい。
吉田さんは
Yeah, because
Thank you.
Ami-san really knows Yoshida-san's characteristics very well, so it's we are very relying on Ami-san's translation for when he explains the game systems or mechanics. So thank you very much, Ami-san again.
Thank you.
はい。では今から休憩に入るんですが、1時40分再開。So we want to restart the latter part of the letter live at the 1:40 p.m. Japan time, which is in 20 minutes. でですね、今日の休憩の音もご紹介したいと思います。So during the break, we have two videos today for you to enjoy.
20分あるから1本ならいいやと思ったら2本あるのか。
Yeah, we have a 3-second digest preview of all the songs from the upcoming Endwalker soundtrack, and a time-lapse video of mosaic art we created live using screenshots that we were submitted by our players during another broadcast. 2本ありまして、1本目は先日つい最近公開しましたエンドウォーカーのサントラが出ます。その3秒ダイジェストの全曲紹介のトレーラーがありますので、そちらをご覧いただき、その後ですね、これも先日ご紹介しましたが、別の生放送企画でモザイクアート、皆さんからお送りいただいたスクリーンショットでモザイクアートを作るという企画がありまして、それのタイムラプスビデオがありますので、そちら2本続けてご覧いただいて、また1時40分から再開したいと思います。はい、それでは休憩です。ビデオをご覧ください。どうぞ。
Alright. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. I'm gonna go to bed. I'll see you guys tomorrow or some other time. Thank you for tuning in.